Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fight Night Rising, or I guess Fight Afternoon Rising. I am Chris Booposaurus Assard here with a new person, the lovely, my absolute best friend, Lemonkiwi, on the other side of the mic. How's it going? And welcome to Fight Night, Lemon.
I was gonna say, I'm a weird looking Khroen for sure. Definitely got a haircut or two, but hey, I'm super excited. Big fan of Fight Night. And a new patch just hit. Challengers was yesterday. There's so much going on in the TFT world, so I'm excited for today.
Yep, let's see what the players are going to be playing for today. Making money off of video games is always a really good plan. First place is going to get $100, second $50, third and fourth $25 each. And so let's go ahead and take a look at who will be competing today. And remember, these players are the ones that are really making their names in the TFT scene right now. Fight Night Rising is one of the best jumping off points in TFT. And today we've got AJSwagatron, Khroen, Javaday, and Dyson, Nixer, Omaestro, Jolly Faker, and Mortdog Cat, with Omaestro, Jolly Faker, and Mortdog Cat being the returning players from last week. And, you know, just to let you know, Lemon, Omaestro's on a 2-game winning streak, and he's a pretty flexible player. And we were talking about it earlier today. Flexibility in the early game can be a winning combination.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, too, that it's only the top 3 that get an invite to the next fight night. So it's important to go for that dub, but you bring up flexibility. It's such an important thing in that early game. And I think that more specifically goes to the itemization. So even in Challengers yesterday, a lot of the early item slams had to do with tank items, things that you can slam on pretty much any tank line from any composition. I'm thinking things like Shadow Locket, or even Proper Locket, actually, and Redemption. And just for that little bit of a power spike or sustain, if you will, so you don't lose too many units early, because a lot of compositions these days have to do with conserving as much HP as possible, especially with how popular Teemo is.
I hate that sentence. Teemo is popular, friends. A Hellion Invoker comp can be very, very strong and really good once it gets to the late game. But let's talk about the early game a little bit more. You were talking about the tanks and building those tank lines because they're a little bit more flexible. And the items that you listed off are all items that will maintain their effectiveness throughout the entirety of the game. If you, think about, Redemption versus Giantslayer, you're going to get more value over the whole game with that Redemption than, say, that Giantslayer, which is really only going to peak in the late game.
Yeah, and speaking of tanks, it feels like the Cavalier reroll composition is still pretty viable and still pretty popular. Even just looking at the Challenger comps yesterday, there was a bunch of people running either the Cavalier reroll with Hecarim as your main carry, where usually you would put the Redemption on a Nunu beside him. So that's kind of like those early items you might see where you're not necessarily going one direction. Redemption can fit into really any mold. And then also, speaking of tanky compositions, Set and Brawlers. Set, another reroll composition that once you get him to level 3, he pops off. Usually you put your damage items on Set, but then it's just tanky all around with 4 Brawler. And what else did we see yesterday? Yeah, a lot of Cavaliers, a lot of Set rerolls, and maybe less 4 cost carries, but just because everyone goes for that reroll. But hey, we're into game 1.
All right, game 1, we're starting off riding with Maestro, our 2-time defending champion. So, Lemon, I don't know if you know this, but there is something called the 3-week curse here at Fight Night Rising. Which a lot of people do really well for 2 weeks, and then they bottom out on that 3rd week. It's kind of like that first test of, can you maintain, can you be consistent? So that's definitely one of the things I'm looking at for Omaestro. But talking to him, he's got a really good head for it. The way he talks about the game is very mathematical and analytical, and I think he keeps everything very open in the early game, which this is unfortunate with the Nikos, but I guess that's going to help you be a little bit more flexible in the early game for now, as you're not going to be able to do anything with it for a bit.
I mean, I was even hearing Khroen say in Challengers yesterday of how Nico in gold as your first minion drop is, quote, you're doomed, even though it seems like if you can high roll at the right moments, you can turn this around. So it seems like people really hate getting Nico at the start, but just looking for that early pair where, of course, Draconic is, if you can have a Draconic opener that can really set yourself up for a Set reroll, and just even if you don't go Set reroll, it could set you up for success of just having great economy because of those Draconic egg drops.
And to go back on, this Nico thing again, think about what we just talked about when it came to that redemption, right? Redemption's going to find value the entirety of the game, where this Nico's might not ever find the right place to actually get used outside of maybe the hyper late game with a 5-cost unit or a 4-cost unit. I think the idea here is to invest it early on a 2 or 3-cost unit to get them to tier 3, but that seems to be a little less popular ever since that B patch. But yeah, I like the opening here with the brawlers. We're keeping it open with redeemed and skirmishers. So right now, as you know, Omaestro loves playing flexibly, could technically go into 3 different directions from this opening.
And having Skirmisher 3 here is a great start. I think people are more looking to itemize Kennen these days of how strong he is. I think he got affected in that B patch, so looking for Morellos or Shadow GA, things like that, where he has a sword, but... And I think GA would be still a flexible item. I think with how prevalent assassins are, throwing a GA on your carry, especially if it's a backline unit, is always good against assassins. But yeah, no point of really forcing it. He is deciding to early level to 4.
And so what this means is we're actually feeling okay about possibly win streaking. If we don't, then we've invested all that money for absolutely to ruin our economy, pretty much. Because then we're going to either have to lose again, because if we 50-50 our first 2 rounds, then we never actually get to build our interest. But the extra unit is going to take down Nixer, no problem. I'm really interested to see where the Skirmisher comp will end up going, and this comp too, because I actually think the Renewer opening might be one of the more difficult ones to get out of, because you can move into Covens, you can move into Nightbringers and the Yasuo. There are a couple different options, or you can keep them around and wait for an Ivern a little bit later.
Yeah, I know that like Vlad got a bit of a buff, and I just stay away from Renewer openings, like unless you get some kind of great early level 2, like thinking of Vlad or even Lysandre, maybe it's okay. But when it comes to openers, my favorites are always Dawnbringers, Redeems, and like maybe you get away with some Knights if you like accidentally get a Nautilus or something like that. I don't know.
Basic.
So basically, I'm basic. I like my Redeems and I like my Dawnbringers. I said it.
Yeah, Dawnbringer opening is great, especially for that assassin opening because of the Kha'Zix, right? You throw in your Gragas and your Kha'Zix, you're going to be able to take down 1 or 2 units. And we do have our first look at some assassins. The IE on LeBlanc. That Shadow IE is going to do damage to herself every single time they crit, including those chains, but it's only 3%, and it's not that much damage with this LeBlanc. And with that assassin buff, those assassins are going to be pushing a ton of damage. 3 level 1 units and a tier 2 Gragas just wiped Nixer just then.
Yeah, 2 Brawler, 2 Assassin, a great opener. And also having that initial damage from the IE maybe even sets you up for a dark blue buff, which you need to be below 50% HP to get that extra mana, or else it actually ends up doing more harm than good if you don't have, if you're not taking damage. But dark blue buff, very good on LeBlanc, but able to high roll a Legionnaire Riven. Legionnaire Riven has been more popular. We didn't see it in Challengers too much yesterday. I think when it comes to Legionnaire, people prefer Draven and maybe in setting up Mord for success, but see what this turns into. It's still 2 Dawnbringer.
Yeah, individual Legionnaire units are really interesting because they seem to have been going through a little bit of a cycle. Before the B patch, Riven was super popular in the reroll meta because Riven 3 was a win condition. Still is. So we'll see if we're going to kind of hang on to the Riven for a little while longer, or if we're going to kind of keep things open, as this is going to be for the Vladimir. AJSwagatron takes their first loss so far today. Looking at these items, too, we've got 2 cloaks, a shadow bow, and a rod. So we actually have a good amount of direction here. I wonder if we're going to get a tier or a sword.
That's goes for the tier. Another thing is that Nixer was on a 2-loss streak and ended up winning that, so now able to get to that 10 gold eco, which is great, but it's either you want a loss streak or you want a win streak, and being in the middle is not the greatest thing. But when you're in last place, you also want to stop hemorrhaging HP, and we kind of had thought that with how Renewer is maybe one of the quote weaker openings, but see what they do with that tier.
Okay, so we might be getting a Archangel Staff on a Vladimir, depending on how much we want to go through to that Vladimir. There's a really fun really fun Shadow Archangel Staff Vladimir build. You put 3 of them on, and then
Oh
you just
God.
get super tanky. It's a top 4 type of situation, but not in this realm. As we get a second Legionnaire, it looks like we might be going pretty hard into the Riven as we speak, but it's going to be the Lissandra doing most of the damage right now. With the Jeweled Gauntlet, though, that's a commitment. We might not actually be moving into this Riven anymore, as the Jeweled Gauntlet's really good for units with AP damage.
Yeah, I mean, I love running Karma, but I know just Karma is not in the cards with how annoying the assassins are lately. But yeah, when you think about Jewel Gauntlet, now you're really starting to solidify your direction towards, you got your Karma, your Vel'Koz. Even LeBlanc can utilize Jewel Gauntlet as if you don't get your like an IE or something like that. So Jewel Gauntlet works out. Even Mordekaiser can use it. So quite a few characters or units like the Jeweled Gauntlet. But now you're wondering, is it going to be a Shojin's or a blue buff? Because that's even going to cement you into a even more specific of a direction, where Shojin's is more of a Vel'Koz direction, and blue buff can maybe still open you up to Brand or Karma and things like that.
Let's not forget about that Soraka carry as well. Soraka, Dawnbreaker, and Renewer would fit into this comp quite well with those items too, as the reroll Soraka was getting pretty popular there at the end of that last patch. But looking at what we're seeing right now, I think we're seeing a pretty classic opening when it comes to Nixer, and the results seem to be pretty consistent with what you would expect too. Javaday, though, at level 4, making sure that loss streak continues, because look at the gold differential, right? 30 gold here. So we're kind of open forwarding without actually open forwarding when it comes to our economy. And we're going to get carry type priority pretty easily, I think, as we're 10 below 6th place. And so we can go up to that carousel. We can start building out our comp here, because there's no direction for sure right now for Javaday. We just have a Hurricane, which could go on any auto-attacking carry, really.
Yeah, Udyr's a great item holder for Jax later on. And see what they end up getting out of that. I guess the next one you're looking at a Shadow QSS for that Shadow Glove that he has. And I mean, the tiers, we'll have to see what that ends up being. But yeah, then maybe Risk Thirster or even Bloodthirster is another great item on Jax. And some people like GA if you can't build that Shadow QSS on them, because these are all, skirmishers are all going to be these frontline units. So they're going to take all the CC in the world. So you need to kind of have some defensive items in mind.
We're moving on over to some Legionnaires. Skirmisher, Legionnaire, this is something that you kind of stumble into in the mid-game a lot, is you get your 3-piece Skirmishers, and you're like, okay, we're going to be able to scale on that damage, but we're looking on Mort Dog Cat's side, and we're seeing a potential Draconic comp. We already have a Set 2 and a Warwick 2, and Brawlers, man, 1,000 HP in the early game is so valuable. Really doesn't mean much in the late game, but in terms of where we are right now, that extra HP is absolutely huge, and actually is going to be the difference between winning and losing that round, interestingly enough.
But that means Java's on a 6 loss streak and in last place. You're only, what, like 14 HP off of 6th place, so you're starting to worry. You're starting to wonder, okay, the six loss streak is going to get you a lot of extra gold, but how are you going to start winning? What is your winning plan? And actually, we saw a glimpse of somebody already having IE and some kind of blue buff on their LeBlanc. Wasn't sure if that was a shadow one or not. But looking at this board, you got Brawlers. The Draconic start probably helped them get some good eco going, but the whole point of Set reroll is you need to get Set to level 3, and I imagine these Kha'Zix items could be thrown off and put onto Set eventually.
Yeah, I think the Bloodthirster going onto the Set is a great call, especially with that shield that comes through with the regular Bloodthirster. I like regular Bloodthirster over Risk Thirster most of the time, but we'll see where this sword ends up going, because I also really, really like Shadow Giant Slayer at the end of a game, especially with a lot of these comps becoming pretty beefy. We've got 2 Brawler 4 players in the lobby right now, so things like Giant Slayer, things that are going to be doing % health, are going to be very valuable in the late game.
Not pulling out the dub here. I just like the name Mort Dog Cat.
I know, right?
a good thing, a bad thing? Is this a neglected pet, or is this a very loved pet? I don't know. But we're starting to maybe think about taking these items off of Kha'Zix, and because level 2 Kha'Zix pretty decent early game, but now if you're starting to lose, it might be time to put this onto set.
The value of that Kha'Zix is already done. You're not going to find any more of it unless you're getting to that Assassin 6. But looking across the board right now, we've got some Draconics, we've got some Assassins, and we're looking at just straight Brawler right now. But 3 of them are tier 2, and that IE is going to be doing a good amount of damage on one ult, so it should be able to take down at least one unit. Or not, as the LeBlanc here with almost best in slot items is going to get into that back line and get consumed. Interesting. So yeah, this 1,000 HP on those brawlers are going to really work out here. Thank goodness for our own Nunu, if you're Jolly Faker.
I wonder with that Shadow Bow, are you doing Shadow Titans with it? Because I've been hearing that if you go for some kind of backline carry, that a Shadow Titans on a tank is going to help supplement your damage so much more. Like, I've been hearing that a lot. But if you have Brand, for example, as your primary carry, then maybe you throw a Shadow Titans on Hackerim, where usually you put a lot of tank things on him, but apparently Shadow Titans does just as well on a tank. But now we're on next carousel.
This is why that Nico start is not that great. We're at 3-5, and there's still a Nico's on our board. You see what I'm saying? It's just a wasted item spot if you get it at the early game. So I like using it, just using it, because I don't like seeing it in my deck.
Is that extra gold?
Not really. But we'll see.
Just sell the unit? I don't know.
But we're going to be able to get that Bloodthirster. Or we're going to put another Ruden's Hurricane. So no Bloodthirster on the set. We're leaving the Hurricane on instead. So that's going to be going on an auto attack based unit. I think Nocturne is one that a lot of people think of. Riven is another one that people think of when it comes to that Shadow Hurricane.
Yeah, that Slam tells me, okay, well, how Abomination works is it's one item taken from the 3 closest abominations. So I was kind of wondering why they didn't put it on Callista, but now I'm noticing it's a level 1 Callista, and it's only going to be one of the items from Callista that go to the abominations. So after that Shadow Hurricane Slam, I'm starting to think this is not going to be what they stay on for the long term, and it's not, I don't know, there's the abomination coming out. It's going to kick the heck out of these backline units, which is going to help a lot, especially with how squishy they are at this point of the game. But late game is what we have to worry about with abominations.
Yeah, and just in general with this team comp, it gets weaker and weaker as time goes on because people do more and more damage and can cut through a lot more of that HP. Because if you're looking at this front line, it's 1,000 extra HP just from the Brawler trait, plus their internal HP, which is going to make them pretty strong. But we are bringing in some skirmishers right now. So this is a comp that a lot of people played in the last patch. Trundle and Mordekaiser can go together as the Dragon Slayers, along with that Hurricane going onto that Jax. We might be seeing a little bit of a Jax carry right now, but now that Mordekaiser has been sold, that might not be in the cards, but we're keeping the skirmishers just in case.
Yeah, I wonder. This is obviously for eco because you don't have. Guess you would have had 2 Dragon Slayer, but when you really want to run Mordekaiser is when you want to go for 4 Dragon Slayer with those skirmishers. So the Hurricane, the Shadow Hurricane, great item for Jax. And then what was the other item I missed? Oh, the IE would have been a good Mordekaiser item because I guess you could put it on Jax if you don't end up getting the Risk Thirster going, but then you miss out on that really healing that Jax absolutely needs. But Mordekaiser will be taking that loss, and now we're in Wolves.
Okay, so this is where we're going to start entering the late game. 4-1, I feel like, is the transition from the mid game to the late game. 4-2 is when I think the late game officially starts, when we finally get our last armory to pick out. Because at this point, if you don't have a direction, you're just lost, right? You're just dizzy.
You're dizzy.
At this point in time. So I'm curious to see what this sword might turn into, if it turns into anything, because I don't know if we're going to keep with this Abomination. Brawler Abomination, pretty consistent opening, but then that usually transitions into something else, which is really cool because you usually transition out of Brawlers or A-bombs, but we might be sticking with both this time around because that Shadow Runins was good on that Abomination.
Oh, deciding to level up, not go for the level 2 Trundle. and just trying to play the best board that they can, and especially high rolling that Kindred is going to give some survivability to that backline. I wonder if, especially if there's still a LeBlanc player in here, that's what's going to take out this brand. But not having any AP items for this brand is pretty sad, because it looks like most of your damage is coming from Nunu, and a level 1 Kalista is just not going to do the job, but you keep her in for the Abomination 3. So at the very least, the monstrosity will take out 1, maybe 2 units, and that'll save you some HP.
So this is the flavor of the week right now, which is this Katarina build, Covened. And because the Coven units give Katarina that mana, we basically are ulting every single time. With the IE, it's going to be crit. And you saw how much damage that Katarina did. Katarina carry is something that a lot of pros like running too. I think it's one of the best design units that's ever been in the game, personally. As we get into our last armory. So we're gonna be going for that Risk Thirster, potentially. We can just put it on the brand, but we're gonna go ahead and sell it. Are we gonna replace that brand with Mystics? All right, so we're gonna go full on pivot here.
Okay, trying to figure out how you can get as many skirmishers as possible. Keeping that Mystic 3, I guess, against the Assassins, who can do some AP, especially with that LeBlanc. And yeah, I mean, Jax, level 1 Jax can still suffer, though, especially... Okay, do we even have the Shadow QSS? We don't. Titans is not something you're going to put on Jax. Usually you go full damage there, and then you'll put the... Oh. And oh. So, usually you go full damage and some kind of defensive item, like a QSS or a GA, but yeah, that Titans is not going to do much.
So, Mortal Cat has some time. We could roll down here very shortly. I wonder how much we're going to greed. Everyone is actually pretty healthy right now. 43 HP, or even 36 is like an appropriate amount of HP for someone in 8th place, as Andy is struggling just a little bit. Let's see if they're going to be able to make it to chickens, as you would expect the people on the bottom side of the leaderboard at this point to actually have the stronger comps, as we might roll into this Jax naturally. Are we finally going to use that Nikos that's been here for 4.2 rounds? Let's see.
I think there's another assassin player too. I saw Swagatron with a fully built out Nocturne. And
sometimes you just hit.
Yeah, those. So you're really looking at Risk Thirster, but that also means you have no immunity to CC because you're not putting that Shadow QSS on. And GA, I guess, can save you, but not having a lot of level 2 units. Jax is, I think, the only one out there. Okay, also Lux, but yeah, we'll see if this will be enough. And deciding not to go for the Risk Thirster quite yet, I'm wondering, I guess they're holding out for a GA.
Yeah, I think Jax doesn't necessarily require a defensive item, in my opinion. I think Caustic Quicksilver is the best one, because I'm lazy and I just don't want to have to like think about positioning. So I just put the Caustic Quicksilver on and just let him go, right? But a lot of people can do the 3 damage items on the Jax. Then it becomes a positioning game. And if you've taken a Lay of the Lamb, for example, and there isn't a ton of CC, and there's no reason to build that Caustic Quicksilver or that Quicksilver. So depending on the context and information that you have, you might be building different things on different people. As we're looking at this Draconic Brawler comp, this is kind of what you were talking about earlier with the set, which is the IE Bloodthirster, because that Bloodthirster will lifesteal off of all attack damage. So Set's ult does do attack damage and will replenish that health pretty dramatically.
There was a spat on that carousel, and we were like halfway through. People, Andy doesn't like to watch carousel, but there was still a spat on Philios. But this is a bit sad right now. He did high roll a Heimerdinger. That's pretty cool. A lot of people usually like to shift their damage items towards Heimer or even Teemo, whatever it do be. But not having set level 3, especially when you're at level 7, seems like he's slow rolling right now. And still holding on to this Draconic despite at 29 HP. I think at this point, ditching the Draconic would have been the right move.
Yep, we're in Draconic jail. I mean, we used to call it Fortune jail. We're in Draconic jail right now. We have 5 Draconics too, I believe. And we just... Oh, no, we don't have a new deer. So we couldn't even do Draconic 5. And the thing about Draconics is... they don't go with anything within the Draconic package. So the Brawlers are there with the set, and that's exactly who you want to be getting a lot of that damage. It looks like we're going to take a win off of Khroen, and that's really good news for Andy, because the other really important thing is to actually get these eggs to hatch, because we do not have a lot of time. And I would, like you said, like to see maybe a transition out of this, because we might not get set 3. We might not get Ash 3. You know, we probably aren't. So where are we going to go from here? But also, Lemon, like, if you were to bail off of it, where would you go?
It's kind of tough, because I would have expected him to be a little bit more aggressive with his rolling, just especially at level 6, where you would have a higher chance at 2 costs to get that set level 3, because he has set items, and I think it's really necessary to hit him level 3. And if you're trying to pivot out of this, I guess you just have brawlers going, so you're waiting for a Volibear. Abominations fits well around brawler, and if you have good ranger items, then Varus and Redeemed have been really popular in the meta. But just your backline people are so squishy. But this can be close.
Okay, so I think the Ash is going to die by 2, maybe not. Okay, by 2 units. Trundle, I hate you. But other than that, Trundle specifically, I think, has something against me. Is holding a grudge. But anyway, 22 HP. And like you said, I would like to see that roll down, but we greeted out. We're going to make it to 5-1. So we're probably going to be spending all of our money at 5-1. I wonder how the roll down is going to go, because our mouse movement has actually not been super intentional. It seems like we're kind of just going with the flow right now, which is at 4-7, is kind of the opposite of how you want to play. You want to be locked in, right? You want to know exactly what you're doing. We've got good units, but do we have a game-winning potential? And now that we're going to start getting golden eggs, and maybe we're going to start winning, right? We could maybe get there, but we're going to have to wait another round to get that golden egg, and it might not even be worth it. One more Ash, though.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're just trying to go Draconic 5 to have the best eco and just fast 9, and then just put all the expensive units. But hey, Ash 3 might help out. And especially now, I think he got a Negatron and gloves out of that last item round. So is this going to be a QSS slam? Is this going to be Thief's Gloves? I.e., you could think about putting on Ash for... IE for some extra damage for Ash, and she's level 3. That's kind of who you want to prioritize your next damage items on.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but was very not quick enough on the Ivern. Could have had an Ivern 2, and is not going to have that available for themselves right now. Is it going to matter? Nixer with the ZZ Rot now is maybe going to take one more unit. No, Nunu's going to have a little bit of a snack instead. Something. I don't know why I did that. As Andy is no longer in last place. But I actually, before we start talking about eliminations, let's go to the top of the leaderboard real quick with Jolly Faker, as there is now a Teemo on the board. And that might change everything for Andy. Are we going to pick it up? It's 6 HP, 22. That is where you would go.
Okay.
No, I don't think we are. But so Jolly Faker did make an A-bomb spat earlier, so there's a couple A-bomb players still remaining. Nixer is one of them, and Jolly Faker's the other, so they're sandwiching the rest of the lobby, which is pretty interesting as we move over to Swagatron with a pretty nice-looking Nocturne. Not a ton of CC going on to that team, but this Ivern might have been enough to delay the departure of this Nocturne. But too much damage on the Deathblade, too much on the IE, and just too much to get through, as Andy going to lose out again. Thank goodness we did not buy that Teemo.
So what surprises me about this assassin comp is that usually a big winning condition for at least to try and win the lobby is to hit these level 3 assassins. So whoever your carry is, and that kind of usually decides who your carry is going to be between Nocturne, Cat, LeBlanc, is how many units you do have. So yeah, I guess 2 away from Nocturne 3. I think if Swagatron could get that done, that would be a huge W. Also, it's Assassin Rise, which is really interesting. But hey, at least it's an opening for Mystic, and it's great CC, especially against backline units.
It's one of those why not situations. You need it. Why not just put it there? And I mean, you're going to be able to crit a bunch of different times on that second ult cast, and we'll see what happens there, especially since Rise doesn't really have like the worst auto attack speed in the world either. Are we even going to be able to make it to the end, though? I really want to see this Rise ult. No, we aren't, and it's going to be Javaday's Abomination taking the dub. So 3 A-bomb players. The Swagatron looking a little frustrated. I don't know if you have ever noticed the dolphin in a lot of our players' backgrounds, Levin, but that is the Aegon dolphin. You're not a real TFT player unless you have. It's not a dolphin; it's a shark. Unless you have a shark. Apparently, I'm not real. I'm. There's a story there.
Such joke, at least. Oh, we're not gonna say it. But yeah, knowing the difference between a shark and a dolphin, quite important if you ever go swimming. But hey, next carousel. I love picking up ironclad spats. Oh, well, I live in a desert. Don't have to worry about that.
Yep, exactly. Go for it.
Oh, I was wondering, like, okay, I love picking up ironclad spats. It's one of those super. Yeah, most of the time I'm running ironclads, but I guess if a lot of people are running AP with these, if there's a LeBlanc assassin, Abomination's going to carry a death cap over. Might be good to try and incorporate more mystics. So I guess maybe ironclad spat isn't the first thing you're going to grab, but going for the ZZ Rop, probably going to throw this on Volley Bear. Everyone look at the Volley Bear, or maybe you don't want everyone to look at the Volley Bear. Depends if he's still going to get his ult off while he's dying, which is a great part of why Revenant is a great trait. But yeah, that's the solo frontline unit. Everyone else is going to jump in the back.
Okay, speaking of jumping around, I would absolutely love to go to Maestro's board, because I don't know if you saw, but I think there are 3 Nikos on Maestro's board right now. Yeah, Jolly Faker with the Dawnbringer spat this time. That's actually going to be pretty complicated against these assassins, because they're going to be able to get that health back up, and our non-draconic player actually has the tier 2 Heimerdinger. That is what you call a late game comp, as Nixer, Mortdog, Cat both get eliminated. Are we going to get a triple elimination? Javaday needs to find another victory, but no, it's going to be Andy with that tier 3 Ashe going to survive. But look at the separation between our top 4 and everyone else. Andy and AJSwagatron are going to have to win a couple in a row in order to get there, as we see Mr. Nikos 2021 on the convergence right now, which is 3 Nikos helps and could 3-star both Morgana and Yasuo right now.
Holy cow, you read that like a book.
Yeah, okay.
You read that like a book. That is a scary composition. You have the Shadow Bramble. Yeah, I just like that Lee Sin is just an eyesore. I don't know. Just for the Nightbringer, obviously, but to level 3 a Lee Sin seems weird. But yeah, the Shadow Bramble just for the extra armor. The Shadow Hurricanes, I guess, is what landed on the Mordekaiser. I think this was the person who had the Abomination. Remember that weird Abomination where you hit the Shadow Hurricanes on the Nunu? And yep. I love the RFC on Yasuo. That's a very core item.
It feels like it's because of the ult, right? Yasuo's ult, even though we're actually going to have 3-star units going up against another reroll comp, we're only going to lose by a little bit. But going back to Maestro, who obviously wants another Mystic right now. But the big thing here is that Yasuo is always going to hit on that true damage, right? No missing on that true damage after that ult, and will potentially be getting a ton of lifesteal from that Hand of Justice, the shadow version of it. Thornmail on the Mordekaiser is going to be a flat 200 armor, which is going to be really good against the assassins. But yeah, it looks like we need some Mystics for some magic damage defense right now in order to try to win out the game, because we just lost that with 3 tier 3 units, in which one of them is one of the best in the game.
And ends up putting that Hodge on the Mordekaiser. Might as well, when you have most of your items on somebody, if you have 2 items, you might as well just put the third one, as we're kind of just scouting around the board. Where you have this comp is going to be really susceptible to CC. So these Volley Bear comps, the I like that at least he's positioning on the right side, so the Monstrosity is not going to hit them directly. And but yeah, you don't have a QSS, and a lot of CC comes out of these Volley Bear and these Ashe type of compositions.
This is one of those comps that would have been really nice to have that Mystic Splash, especially since that Heimerdinger and Teemo are right there, ready to fight, and just that HP isn't really lasting all that much, but that true damage from that Yasuo is coming in hot. Is it going to work out? It looks like it will. Jolly Faker, 2 levels ahead of Maestro, will take the L there.
And that's why Shadow Hodge is becoming just so popular, especially for like Kale or even for Yasuo's. It's just to have the healing and the AP to that. So you don't have to really roll the dice. It's really about how many takedowns you get. That's going to decide if you get those perks or not. So as long as they don't get hit by too much CC, the Yasuo should be able to clean things up. I think he hit like 13k damage with that Yasuo, but we'll see how this is going to go. Maybe positioning against these assassins that are coming up. And he's got the trap claw at the front. It's really smart.
All right, Andy, let's do this. We got to still climb up to that 4th place, but we have a very strong team comp all of a sudden. But that Katarina just destroyed that Ashe in the back line. That Kindred ult's not going to be doing much. Wow, Khan's comp is kind of nutty. No, that is a lot of damage coming in from those assassins. And look at the Revenant Katarina. I've never really thought of that before, but with that Nocturne, that Katarina is going to be doing even more damage after the res, along with the Coven buff. You don't need no Morgana 3 if you've got this Cat 3 instead.
It's just, yeah, Revenant Spat is one of the better ones for sure, because I mean, most of the time you're going to have some form of Revenant, whether it's going to be Ivern. A lot of the assassins are important, so you're going to have the Revenant from the Nocturne and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a mini GA. I love that on Katarina. She's going to be bouncing around, especially as your secondary carry, and she's level 3. So scary. And before, when I used to run assassins, I always thought Katarina was more of a utility one. You know, you throw your Frozen Heart or something that just is going to debuff the other team. But now that she's got buff, she can actually be a primary carry depending on if you can level 3 her or not. But gets taken down by how tanky this Mordekaiser Legionnaire Nightbringer comp.
Yep. Look at all those defensive items all of a sudden, as it looks like it's been a little bit of an abomination day, as Javaday is going to survive by the skin of their teeth. Andy does fall in 5th place. We have our top 4. It's going to be Maestro, who continues that really hot streak from 3 weeks ago. Jolly Faker on their 3rd week as well, coming in really strong, along with Javaday, who's coming in with a little bit of hype from some past performances. So what did we end up grabbing? We got the Dragon's Claw. So again, that magic damage is going to be neutered on whoever this gets put on. That brand needed to be a tier 3 brand to truly be a carry in this comp. But Lulu 3 did just get nerfed, but is still very, very strong. I mean, it's a lot of attack speed that people really underestimate.
Yeah, it's only her mana and the polymorph duration that got nerfed, but her attack speed did not get, or the attack speed buff that she gives did not get touched, and that's why she becomes such a good unit, especially for an attack-based comp where you don't have any items on Callista, so it's really just, also it's a great, Lulu is a great anti-assassin just support. We're at the back with the Declaw and the Redemption. You could see how she's just going to be the one dealing with the assassins, or at least buying time. And the fact that she lives throughout this fight is really impressive. But this Viego is going to finish this person off, and Javaday is out in 4th.
Javaday is out. I'm not going to trust Lulu with any deal making in the near future. That is for sure. As I think this comp is pretty nutty. Look at all those splashes. I mean, it's pretty much playing. Did we win the game? It's pretty much playing every single class or origin that is available right now. We've got 3 renewers just for the fun of it, I guess. As we can put the A-bomb spat on somebody else. It is going to be A-bomb 5, but who is it going to be? You don't want to put this with someone with items, because you don't want the RNG to throw a bad item on somebody if you put that A-bomb spat on them as well. This is going to be an interesting matchup, because the backline's pretty squishy, but has that Dawnbringer buff. I wonder if this Katarina is going to be as effective as we've seen in 2 fights ago.
That Diana toss-up was quite painful, but the monstrosity came in time, and I've never actually thought about putting a redemption on a monstrosity, but that's going to be a big hit to, I don't even know how to pronounce that person's name, but they
Khan.
still have Khroen, okay.
Yeah.
They will have 3 HP. Still 3rd place in the cards, but I mean, we're coming down to the last fight to decide, I think, 2nd or 3rd place, and Maestro in a great position, 1st place.
3 tier 3 units for the last 5 rounds, friends at home. 5 rounds. I don't remember the last time I had 3 tier 3 units ever. So, like, outside of, like, a reroll meta. But those are tier 3 units that were, 3 cost units that are tier 3 with that Morgana, with that Lee Sin, for example. But this Rageblade, along with a nice little pickup with that Kindred, could go on someone like the Kindred to get that ultimate back. Kindred, one of the most contested units in the game. I mean, it's invincibility. As Maestro has decided that level 9 just not in the cards right now, might as well build up that Lee Sin that we kind of lucked into as we move forward into our final 3. These are going to all be elimination matchups pretty much.
Seems like he's just trying to also take up more Nightbringers just to give themselves more options. Just kind of deciding how they want to position against, not getting the Diana 2 in time because they were scouting. And this is where you maybe clean up your bench of kind of just keeping your Nightbringers and looking for level 3s if you can. And it doesn't seem like level 9 is going to be in the cards, even though you're in first place, even though he still hasn't used the Nikos too, but this is quite a definitive dub too. 5-1, I think, was what he ended up. I mean, he's so confident he's looking at, first place to Maestro.
Yeah, Omaestro starting off where he left off in first place. 3 Nikos, 3 of them on the bench. Tier 3 Lee Sin, Tier 3 Yasuo, Tier 3 Morgana. Loses the next round and then doesn't lose another one after that. Lemon, that was your first lobby. How'd you feel about the play that you saw?
It makes me, I learned more about the bottom 4 than I did the top 4, to be honest, of kind of a few lessons. Stay away from Draconics, or you have to be very efficient on when to get in and when to get out, because you have to also high roll them at the start to really go that Draconic direction. And I think it was Andy that had Draconic 5, but really just did not want to let go of it. All that money, all that power, all that greed just costed him way too much HP.
All right, let's look at the scores after our first lobby. Omaestro is going to be at the top. And remember, friends, for the last 3 weeks in a row, someone who has gotten 8th in a lobby has made it into the top 3 by the end of the day. So do not relinquish yourself to the bottom of the leaderboard because of one result. You still have a chance. Because the last 3 lobbies have just been very, very close. Jolly Faker at 8, Khan at 7, Javaday at 6, Andy, Swagatron, Mortdog, Cat, and Mixer closing it out. Mortdog Cat was actually one of those players that I'm referencing, got 8th place in a lobby and ended up getting top 3 by the end of the day.
And I think Nyx at that bottom side, I think we remember they started off with Renewer and that early slam on the Jewel Gauntlet and just maybe couldn't find that direction early enough, but I think we've learned a lot of things more about the bottom 4, as we said, but even the top 4, I thought really leveling 3 set was critical, and we saw that even level 2 set with the right items could get you pretty far in the game, and Abomination just becoming more and more popular, and just really deciding on what items you're giving to that monstrosity and planning that out well, and not giving so much to the chance of RNG for that to happen.
Here's some trivia. I don't know if you know this, but they actually modeled the Abomination after me. I'm the reference. I'm the reference image. I'm the reference image for the Abomination. Yeah, exactly. You guys don't know this, but I'm actually yoked beneath these hoodies. I haven't worked out. I haven't worked out in 2 years, but you know, you're just gonna have to believe me. Anyway, thanks for dealing with that, Lemon. But as we go into the next lobby, I'm really curious because TFT players tend to tactically borrow from each other when one comp is successful in one lobby. Some people tend to adopt those comps, as we are going to be riding along with AJSwagatron, who got the tier to pick up first. Are you thinking that we're going to be seeing, some similar things, or are we going to be seeing maybe some Invokers, maybe the Jacks doing a little bit better in a different kind of lobby?
Yeah, I mean, we saw some Invokers with just Teemo and Iverns and stuff like that. Not for Invokers, just because people really hate Karma and people really hate Syndra as much. But the tier start, super flexible. I mean, I've even said that in the Challenger series yesterday, we saw people slam that Redemption is just a viable tank item for literally any frontline. But then tier becomes a core item for people like Brand, who's really popular right now, to get that blue buff. It's almost like not playable without that blue buff. And then you have that Shojin's, where that's more of a Vel'Koz item. But most people or most units prefer that blue buff. Really depends which ones, who have like lower mana and stuff like that. But the sword and the tier start, not bad.
Ooh, and a bow. So we actually have a lot of directions we can go right now. Also, friends, if you are an open forwarder and like losing LP like me, the best unit to do it with is this Warwick right here. Warwick is one of the few units that can actually take all 3 NPC rounds on his own. So if you're just like trying to get money, or if you got a lot of money on one of them and you just don't really feel like buying any units until the PvP rounds, Warwick is all you need to get through the first 3. Interesting.
This is where you have Victor at the bottom, who Victor has become more and more popular just because of he's a great support spell weaver. So if you go towards that brand reroll or that brand abomination-ish comp, then the second spell weaver you usually want is going to be that Victor, but not deciding to pick it up. But a level 2 Kha'Zix is going to be a nice power spike, and you have the 2 Dawnbringers, so have a little bit of healing. And we don't have maybe another brawler, like maybe a Gragas would have been nice just with that Warwick, but the 2 Dawnbringers should do well.
Yeah, it kind of dawned on me that maybe...
Stop.
I'm sorry. I don't even have kids yet. Anyway, it did dawn on me that the Riven might be a really nice direction at this point in time. So if we're able to luck into a couple Rivens moving forward, we have an opening for that reroll Riven comp, especially with the Kha'Zix already at tier 2. One of the better, early game units. If a unit is isolated, that Kha'Zix will one-shot them and will win you around sometimes. Even if it's just a tier 1 Kha'Zix versus a tier 2 unit, if it's able to get to that ultimate, so much damage from that isolation. As Mortdog Cat is going to be who we're going to be jumping around to, and we've got a pretty... We hit on a Nocturne, it looks like, on the NPC rounds, but we're going to be running a Hellion opening right now. The most common transition from Hellions is into Invokers with Teemo, but we're going to go ahead and switch over to Assassins, which seems to be the comp that people tend to want to play right now, especially if you already have that blue buff.
Yeah, the dark blue buff too, so important for LeBlanc. I think she starts out with 20 mana, and then the max is like 50 or 60. So when you have that dark blue buff, she's going to usually take damage because she's an assassin. She's right literally in their face. A dark blue buff's going to kick in. She'll be able to ult every time. And you have a Hurricanes on the bench where, surprise, you're not just going to want to put that on Nocturne because that's one of his core items, I believe, or at least one of the better ones. But now just trying to kind of scout, get things going, and keeping those Forgottens on the bench in case they luck into maybe more Heckrooms, because that's also a very strong comp right now.
Jeweled Gauntlet on Warwick. So this is one of those things that, like, there's always something in TFT, I feel like, that one person learns way late. I think for this set, it was that Soraka doesn't heal. For the Warwick, a lot of people, I know, right? A lot of people just assumed Soraka healed when she came out. But the Warwick does AP damage, even though you're seeing melee attacks. The Warwick does AP damage for those swipes. So that Jewel Gauntlet is going to do a potential crit on each instance of that swipe. So it's actually not a bad item for that Warwick to wear for the time being. You could actually put the Shadow Archangel staff triple on Warwick as well and make him super tanky. That's a really fun little meme build. That can top 4 if you want, if you get all of the right items. But I'm actually looking forward to seeing what Mortdog Cat is going to look like in 6-7 rounds, because this is shaping up to be a pretty solid assassin comp, but we still need a hit. Right, we still need to keep going. This can't be where it stops. We gotta keep pushing forward and decide when we're gonna decide to win a round and reset our economy again.
And I think you throw in that cat instead of the Gragas, you get Assassin 4 going. Because, I mean, that Gragas is really just a meat sponge at the front that is a distraction for all your assassins at the back. Yeah, I'm still maybe surprised that the Hurricane is not being used, because I feel like Dark Blue buff is a pretty solid pivot towards those assassins. Not too many other units going to use that dark blue buff, and maybe holding out for building a Bloodthirster or Risk Thirster first on Nocturne, just a bit more sustained. So that would be maybe my guess, because to go with that Negatron first and then the Hurricanes, but we'll see what they end up going with.
Yeah, he might be trying to lose too. Like, if we put the Hurricane on the Nocturne, we might win a round on accident. And TFT, again, is one of the few games that you can be that upset about winning a round. It's unique to this experience, but I don't think that Hurricane is going on because we do want to maintain that loss streak. And we're losing by 1 unit because Mortdog hasn't won a round, right? But it's still sitting at 86 HP versus Javaday, for example, at 78, as we're looking over at Korn right now, and we might be pushing back into Abominations later as we have another Hurricane. But as of right now, we're going to be doing the Redeemed Night opening, which almost never stays for the entirety of the game unless we happen to go into Kale a little bit later.
And I agree with some of the backline positioning here. So Syndra and Nautilus pretty important because they have some form of CC, whether Syndra just yeets somebody across the map or Nautilus has a great ult to just an AoE knockup. But I think maybe more frontline units, like putting that Aatrox at the front with the Leona just to have a better frontline. But that's just really nitpicking. Still gets a dub by a bunch of units, so doing just fine.
Yeah, Swagatron doing pretty great as well. And we're seeing some of our first Cavaliers coming back. Even though the Cavalier 3 didn't get nerfed or touched. It was only Cavalier 4. And Khroen said yesterday that, some people didn't even run the 4 anyway. So the Cavalier 3 might just be good enough. I'm a little surprised we're not seeing more of it, as it's one of the easiest front lines to get to, in my opinion, because all you need is the Kled, the Hecarim, and the other 2-cost Cavalier that I'm blanking on right now. But the moral of the story here is this Redeem comp is going to be pretty strong. The Hellion comps are not right now. Let's see, though, this Warwick, who's not going to miss on any of those shots at this point in time with that Jeweled Gauntlet. This is going to rip through some HP once we get to that ult. Or not, because it's on Leona and Leona's ulting.
Yeah, just to go off your point of Cavaliers, I think it really depends on the items too. And of course, you put all your tank items on Hecarim, and then usually you want to throw some Spell Weavers to back that up. So if you have a lack of AP items or just haven't found your brand or stuff like that, maybe that's where Cavaliers are not going to become as popular. It really just depends on what shop you get. But the RFC Jewel Gauntlet is still doing work, but at some point of the game, this is going to change. But this is going to give Andy a great win streak, which is a great comeback from how last game went, of just kind of being at last place with that Draconic 5, as we mentioned, but I think still ended up being like 6th place, so they were able to recover a little bit.
Okay, so if unfortunately we're not running Hellions right now for Con, as there's a lot of them in the shop, but what we are going to be looking for is who we could potentially face in these next rounds. So if y'all are new to TFT, you cannot face anyone that you faced in the last 3 rounds. So you can actually eliminate 3 people from your scouting. So you don't have to scout every single board. You only need to scout 4 boards, and you can do that. You scout those boards and then you position for those people specifically. That's how you see people kind of guessing Zephyrs and stuff like that with certain matchups, even with 8 people still. But yeah, this Redeem package is going to be pretty good for a while. Sejuani in the pack. It is something, I love Sejuani. I think, and Sejuani is another one of those units that has a second part of their ultimate, which is, I believe they gain like 100 armor and magic resist after they ult, or something along those lines. And with some defensive items, you can actually move into Nightbringers and the Yasuo with that Sejuani too. I really want to see that Sejuani get experimented with a little bit.
So going for AD items on Ziggs here. So Hellions do get a bunch of attack speed. So I think eventually people realize, at first it was Blue Buff, Jewel Gauntlet, Hex Tech on Ziggs, and then people found out, oh, the attack speed from the Hellions, at least Hellion 5, Hellion 3 is pretty negligible, ends up that you almost want to put more static shivs and AD items to benefit from his autos, but Ziggs might also just be an item holder, as at this point of the game, going full Hellion would be strange. I mean, I think they were still working on level 2ing some stuff, but this is where Hellions is less about getting level 3s and more about just not dying so you can get Teemo online later.
Yeah, you used to be able to go the Spellweaver approach. It's just Vel'Koz is just not in the best spot right now. Not really going to be winning a ton of lobbies unless you 3-star it. And so that option just isn't quite there. It's a nice consolation comp you could go to if you find yourself moving away from Hellions but unable to go Invokers. But yeah, it's actually really cool to see things like Hellion Mordekaiser, because like you said, at Hellion 7, that attack speed buff is quite a bit.
Besides, yeah, they were just rolling down looking for any pairs, any level 2s, any good shot, because they thought about Legionnaires with the Riven and the Mordekaiser and decided, okay, level 1, and did he really want to take those Ziggs items off and maybe put them on Riven, but deciding to go for the Hellion 5 just to keep that level 2 Ziggs, I believe. And I think they have a level 2 cannon, so this was probably going to be their strongest board, even though it's not going to do too much of a dent into Maestro, who is comfortably in 2nd place.
Has a lot of 3-cost units already, so 3-2 is going to be one of the first checkpoints in the lobby. And looking around, Jolly Faker already having a pair of Mordekaisers. That's a pretty easy direction to go to. Yeah, and it looks like we are back. Look at that, a little bit of a breather. And
Commercial break.
Yeah, and the Ziggs too. I think the Ziggs needs to come out here pretty soon. We're already losing anyway. We're at 64 HP, so we're taking out a couple units. But part of me thinks that if we just put better units on, like the Mordekaiser and the Riven and the Yas. Oh, okay, they're listening. Okay, they're gonna do what I said. This is correct.
To you? They're listening?
Yeah, this is correct. This is correct. This is what I wanted to see. The Hellions were going to lose anyway, so why not just put another board that's going to lose anyway?
Another unit? Okay,
you know what I mean? And so now we can put our items on and feel comfortable about this a little bit, because while the Ziggs might have been able to get a unit or two, this comp has a lot more ceiling to go through.
At least the Abomination, I think this was maybe a bit of an afterthought to try and take out one unit, but I think this Yasuo comes in, especially if they can get it level 2. Yasuo is such a strong unit right now. It's think like A or B tier for sure, and then the Hurricane's one of his core items, along with RFC, Jewel Gauntlet, which he already has half of a Jewel Gauntlet on his bench. He has the Nico if he feels like being a little greedy and just throwing that on a Yasuo if he can't find it, or even on the Mordekaiser, but really need to start stabilizing because you're in last place, only by 4 HP, but you're still in last place, 50 off of first.
Swagatron at 100 HP, by the way. That especially
That's crazy.
If you're able to 100 HP by Wolves, I think the statistic is you have over 50% chance of hitting top 4, just by the amount of HP you have, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you're not starting to lose HP by that point in time, you just have a lot more attrition to go through before you can even be at risk of doing it. But Jolly Faker, doing exactly what we thought he would do with those Legionnaires. And now, though, we're moving over to Nixer, who has the worst version of that redeemed comp that we saw earlier. And it might be a little bit of a struggle if we're unable to two-star that Aphelios, as Jolly Faker is able to get that tier 2 Mordekaiser online at 3-5.
And that was nice too. Jolly ended up picking up an Ivern with a belt on it, so made the Warmogs on the Mordekaiser. So definitely, I like that balance of frontline to back, because I mean the level 2 Mordekaiser with no items was just not going to do it. But we'll see how far this redeem goes. I mean, it seems like really holding out for a Kale, I would think, especially, or I don't know. With the Aphelios, I feel like you need some Nightbringers just to have a shield if he starts taking damage or anything like that. So it's really not benefiting from much except the Ranger buff, and at level 2, it's okay, but Ranger 4 has become more popular, especially if you're just going to go all in on Aphelios.
Yeah, Power Rangers is a good comp, like for real. You can do 2 or 4 Aphelios is going to be the crux of that one, and how you build it is going to be really interesting. Mordog said that they wanted Aphelios to build the IE. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's more important to get a Rage Blade or a Bloodthirster, especially after that ultimate. The IE is definitely going to help one-shot people, especially against things like Hellions that you need to do the attacks really. You need to get the damage in a lot faster than against things like a Brawler frontline. But yeah, this Aphelios is going to have to be the Power Ranger to bring us out of the slump a little bit, as the top side of the leaderboard is bullying everyone else right now. Swagatron is just taking HP from everyone else. And Javaday, once again, putting the Rabadon's Death Cap, the Shadow version, on the brand.
Yeah, Aphelios was always the one that I had issues itemizing, because his ult does AP, and then his autos do a lot of AD. Kind of same thing as Yasuo, where you're just like, okay, do you go to buff up his ult or his AD? And I think with that Ranger buff of 70% attack speed, you're going to go more that AD route. But I remember like back, some people would put AP items on Aphelios and Yasuo, things like that. It's really either or, but Velka is not going to live too long. Is that a shadow blue buff too? That was strange, but not sure.
You get to your ult first, and if you're Spellweaver, right, then you're gonna help the rest of your team get stronger with that little bit of splash. And we're trying to get our second Nightbringer in. It is gonna be Sejuani if we don't find a Yasuo. We probably want to find the Yasuo to replace the Knight, one of the Knights, or even the Aatrox, because it's also going to be a Legionnaire. This item round is also going to be, well, we're just going to be gifted. Sometimes you just hit. I wonder what items we're going to get. It's going to be a redemption, which isn't awful for this comp, but we're going to wait until our next armory round to make it happen as Power Rangers are starting to take shape. Are we going to replace the Varus? No, it's going to be Varus instead of Ash.
Yeah, with Knights, you're really looking for Knight 4, because that's the difference between Knight 2 and Knight 4 is 15 damage block versus 40 damage blocked, and if you're going for that redeemed Knight 4 Kale, you need 4 of them. So he's looking for probably a Terrig, even a Thresh, kind of acting as a mini Zephyr in that case, as even you've coined it, and Nautilus, which opens up your Ironclads if you have a lot of AD on the other side, but yeah, this comp is still developing.
Just like me. Sorry.
Are we all?
Yeah, I know, right? I might be an adult, but I'm still developing up here. We all should be. Anyways, Nixer is gonna maybe get nixed out of this lobby here pretty quickly. 36 HP at this point is definitely on the low side, and we're starting to see anytime you see emotion coming from the player, I feel like that's usually a bad thing. Things are starting to get a hold of you in that way, so you got to try to maintain that mental, be as consistent as possible, because it does seem like the game's getting to Nixer a little bit right now.
And I think he's just, he's like so close to Philios too. And I think with that, that's really going to solidify his direction, where maybe he's been picking up some Nightbringers. He has the Diana, he has the Yasuo that he hasn't played with. And I think for Philios, at the very least, you need Nightbringer 4 is kind of the average. Because for every level of Nightbringer you go up, you're only getting a 10% damage boost. So as long as you have a decent enough shield, you kind of want to sprinkle synergies around that Nightbringer instead of going full Nightbringer 8. Not super common with that Philios, but just with the items he has, maybe thinking about a skirmisher. At least he's the Dragon Slayer pivot. I don't know. This guy seems dizzy too.
Yeah, I mean that's the equation, right? The part that we know about is the Philios. Everything else we're still kind of figuring out. This tells me that we're not really used to running this comp. We're not driving a car that we know how to drive. You know how weird it is when you drive a rental car, right? You like everything is different. The brakes and the accelerator is different. Maybe it's even a stick shift. But yeah, we're gonna maybe win out. If that Yasuo had a Bloodthirster, that would have been a lot closer. But the Philios is going to be enough to take the dub in that round. I want to see a Bloodthirster on that Philios, especially after the Nightbringers, because that does provide a second shield, as it's going to be Rise 2 with an Infinity Edge. And what I'm seeing here is that, like, even though it doesn't quite work on Rise, it's not what you're building it for. You're putting items on the Abomination. You got to think about it that way, right? You got to just stop being, but it doesn't work on Rise. It works on the Abomination, and that's what matters.
And also, you're just putting items a little bit everywhere, so they each donate 1 item to the Abomination, and you're really sure what you're getting out of it, which is Death Cap, IE, and the Hurricanes. And the Shadow Death Cap, of course, more AP and all that, which is pretty core to brand. You need you need 2 damage items and blue buff, so I think, Death Cap, Shadow Death Cap, Jewel Gauntlet, sometimes even Hex Tech if you're feeling good. This is what you're going to put on brand, but it doesn't seem like brand's too much of a primary carry without that blue buff, because I think that blue buff is going to increase your damage by about 50%, just being able to ult that much more, because it only takes 1 auto to then, once you have blue buff, 1 auto to ult. So pretty important that he gets that, but Java doesn't even have a single tier, so I'm wondering if that's something they're going to think about.
Yeah, and we're putting it on the Abomination too, right? So the Abomination is going to be getting a lot more damage, as it does have an AP ratio when it comes to that ultimate. And so with the IE, with the Hurricane, all that damage is going to be running it through. Oh, Mutu. Mutu's a great person, by the way, everyone. Very, very good jokes.
Well, they're blocking my carousel.
Blocking my carousel.
I don't know what they got.
And speaking of which, if
Karen.
anyone at home who is watching wants to take a look at any individual Twitch streams, if you're on the computer, you can just hover your mouse over the screen and everyone's profiles will be there. So if you want to take a look at any individual streams, that's how you're going to do it. As we're playing around with a Garen right now, we actually haven't been seeing a ton of these heavier 5-cost units. It's pretty much been Kindred and Heimerdinger when it comes to the 5 costs that we've seen today.
I'm just trying to figure out where this person is going. So, of course, I think they got not what they wanted off the carousel, and, of course, the Shadow Glove on the Garen. I'm thinking, at the worst case, building a Thief's Gloves is never a bad thing, and a Shadow Thief's Gloves, you're guaranteed full items, which is always good. And putting that on Garen, wouldn't that be that bad? But he's thinking, okay, do I have to get rid of my Hellions or what? Because I think those items on Kennen can work on a Nightbringer Morgana, especially when you already have Mystics going, so that can add even more Mystics. Then Morgana can just be a frontline person with that GA that they already have, and the Morello kind of translates well. But he's really thinking, is that going to be better than the 3 Hellion I have, especially if people are going to be diving? That Lulu, like I said before, really good anti-assassin character.
What Java is probably going to be really hoping for as well is a spatula. Abomination 5 is going to make this Abomination or Chris Jr., Booposaurus Jr., pop up and do a lot more damage. Because we have the other aspect of it. We have the Shadow Cloak, which is how you make that Abomination spat, especially since there are other Abomination players. The difference between your A-Bomb 5 versus their A-Bomb 4 could be the difference between, second, third, and fourth place, or maybe even winning the lobby. As Nixer still having a little bit of a hard time, it seems to have stabilized a little bit. Let's see how strong this Aphelios has become since we last saw Nixer.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up about the Shadow Glove and that being the Abomination spec, because the difference between 4 and 5 is going from 1600 health to 2200, and then 160 AD to 220 AD, so becoming more of a late game susceptible comp if you can get Abomination 5. Not like, I would say it's like necessary. It's usually Abominations are just to buy time for your backline carry, whether it's a Spellweaver Vel'Koz, that's become popular with Abomination, or the brand rerolls. But since you already have brand items going, just kind of sucks you're missing out on that blue buff, as I mentioned before, because I think it's one of the most important items on brand.
Yeah, and we got a tier 3 that brand too if we want any late game potential. So the late game potential is going to be going on to the Abomination instead. That's probably a decision that we have made. And look how close the mid table is right now. AJSwagatron with that attrition, right, didn't lose, I think, until Wolves at 71 HP, 20 ahead of second place. Everyone else still within half of their HP amounts, which is kind of what you want to look at when it comes to a close game. Just a chain vest there. Lots of really good economy from Andy, who has taken a little bit of a tumble in the standings. A lot of money on the bench, but it seems like we're starting to make some of those pairs.
It's just when you're trying to run Spellweavers and you're just getting tank items, that's really unfortunate, because I mean your Abomination is acting as that additional tank, and you just have so much frontline because of the Anunu and the Abomination and stuff like that. So not being able to get a single tier means you're not even going to get Shojins to put on Vel'Koz. So you're really hoping in the full item carousels coming up that you can scrounge something up to get your damage up, because just a Deathcap brand, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. And now you're just putting all your eggs in that ugly Abomination basket, and maybe it's still top 4, but not going to be a win. I don't know.
You calling me ugly? Remember,
I thought that's what
I am
you
the
were
base model
referencing. Like if you're saying it was modeled after you, I'm like,
I like to say that
side.
I'm like a pug, so ugly it's cute, right?
Oh, okay,
anyway,
I like that. That's endearing.
I'm taking ownership of the word. Anyway, Andy now has a lot of money on the bench just in those skirmishers, the 369, 18 plus 246.
Don't fall for it, Andy.
Over
it's bait.
20.
Don't do it. Oh,
20 something gold on just 3 units right now, and now we're just gonna have to pivot. Tier 3 Trundle is 2 away. Tier 3 Morgana is 1 away. We still need 1 more Diana. We're very close to having the best comp in the lobby, but we're also very close to bottoming out if we never find these pairs. But what he has done is take away these units to other people. So while we don't have an Aphelios, we have almost all of the other Nightbringers that people might need.
Yeah, it just felt like a bad episode of Hoarders when you're just working on 10 level 3s at once on your bench. And that's just so much money sitting on your bench that you could be ecoing, especially with that win streak. And you're thinking about maybe you could fast 8, fast 9. And if you really care about skirmishers, Viego is the one that would really pop off for you. But at least I like that he has Dragonslayer 4. And we got off of the Aphelios because not really benefiting from that AP, that splash AP you're getting from Dragonslayer. So I like that Yasuo became the new carry with that Nightbringer.
What do you do here? No space on the bench. That would mean 1 more.
We gotta
Pantheon.
pick your favorite child. You just gotta, or just don't pick any of them, I guess.
Yeah. Oh man, actually didn't pick up the
Unlucky.
Mordekaiser there. Interesting, and that would have put us at 10
Not
gold.
quick enough.
Are we going to end up doing it later, or are we going to try to roll for 3 cost units? Because if we're not going to pick this up, we should have sold the Mordekaiser earlier to pick up the Pantheon, right? We can't do each one, but you know, honestly, we're dancing, we're having fun, and that's what matters to me. As we're just going to let the Mordekaiser stay in the shop. We can't pick it up because the other Mordekaiser is fighting, so we can't even pick it up right now.
Yeah, he wanted to buy it before the round started and just was a little too slow on the ball, and is deciding to lock it because that level 2 Mordekaiser will, of course, yay, level 2 Mordekaiser, but also you get a free spot on the bench, which is pretty PogChamp when he's working on like 5 level 3s at once. But we have our next carousel, and the only spat that's cute is the assassin one. I don't even remember if there was an assassin player here.
Yeah, actually, we haven't really seen a ton of it so far. Speaking of being copycats, that's the opposite of what happened. I feel like a lot of times with Assassins, sometimes everyone decides that the other person's going to run it, and so they aren't. So everyone just decides at once that they're not running Assassins. I did see a Katarina on the board, so it looks like we are having some Assassins. This is how I like building Aphelios, what we're seeing right now with that Bloodthirster in the Deathblade. Not a lot of gold, but we have a good item here that's going to help our backline stay a little healthier. Where are we going to put it? I think the Diana is probably the best option because she's kind of a tank that goes into the back line. Oh,
so kind of okay. So I guess we had yeah, I guess we have a few Dragon Slayer people here, but so the Dragon Slayer is not really the trait you're looking for because Aphelios, that splash, like I said before, isn't benefiting too much from that AP. Like, yes, his ult does it, but it's such a minimal boost for Dragon Slayer 2 that you really care about Nightbringer 4 and then what kind of tank synergies you can build around it. So having the Mystic is great, especially with all the kind of abominations and stuff and AP in this lobby. And not too much Ironclads today. Not too many Dravens and AD champs we have to worry about, but if people are worried about the Aphelios, you might see more Ironclads pop up.
Oh!
Wow.
That was hype. That was super hype. Every single bullet did 1,200 crit or more there. No one's going to really survive that as the abominations are starting to fall. They're starting to weaken up, and they're starting to, go lower in that standing as Omaestro does hit that Nocturne 3. So all of a sudden, our only assassin player has all the pieces. So yes, we do have an assassin player, and it's Omaestro, which has got to be terrifying, honestly, to see that Nocturne is at tier 3 already. That's not already that it's there at all.
I mean, that's the big winning condition with Assassins is level 3ing as your carry, of course, number 1. And really what decides your carry is who you can get the most units of. So Nocturne being level 3 is huge. If you can get Cat and even LeBlanc level 3, that's, brownie points. But we'll see how this frontline can really keep up because this level 3, is that a Riven? Oh, level 3 Riven's kind of pretty easy to get because nobody really builds Riven. But when she's level 3, she is scary.
Scary. One of the scariest versions that you can have of Riven after that ult, after that AoE stun. We do get more attack damage, and man, that is going to show up pretty well as Nixer is actually going to fall. So we got one hype round with Aphelios, and that's the thing with Power Rangers. Positioning is really important. I wonder if we just got kind of hooked in the corner, maybe. Jolly Faker at risk of being eliminated, but AJSwagatron still almost 40 points over the rest of the lobby. Everyone seems to be fighting for second at this point in time.
Just Assassins here. There's so many expensive units you can put around it, especially when you get more Revenants. You put your Ivern, you put Volibear, then if Nocturne's your carry, then you're just having more HP with your kind of mini GA that you're getting with your Revenant. And then this is where now we're kind of looking at someone else's board. Okay, so they actually made Ivern as the tank with the Declaw, the Redemption, everything. And I like that they're putting their utility items, so that Frozen Heart on the Diana, because that's going to affect like so many units on the board. It has such a huge range. So probably that used to be on Cat, or like usually Cat's kind of my utility carrier, but now that she's level 3, she just has a dark blue buff on her, and not able to get more damage items on her is unfortunate. Maybe looking for IE and stuff like that, but really who they can toss up with this Frozen Heart is going to be important. So kind of aiming for that Heimerdinger.
So Andy just tier 3'd the Trundle and the Pantheon, it looks like. So we got those pairs. So all of a sudden, Andy might have the strongest comp in the game. Jolly Faker is one of our Abomination players that has seemed to fall off quite a bit. Nice items on the Abomination, but as you can see, just too much damage coming in from Omaestro's comp. And is Omaestro going to be able to take the dub once again? Yes, as it's going to be a second top 4 in a row. Are we going to be able to win this lobby if you're Omaestro? There's a lot of HP to go through with Swagatron, but Andy, Khan, Omaestro, and Swagatron will finish in the top 4.
Just adding that Lulu for the Mystic too. And oh yeah, there's so many level 3 units. And I think that was although I kind of made fun of Andy for the the Hoarders episode, also hoarding all the Nightbringers away from Nyx, who ended up in 7th place, who was working on a Ranger Affiliate, so probably couldn't find that many Nightbringers because of Andy.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, level 3... not too much to upgrade after you have all the units you need, so might as well go for level 3s if you're not really caring about going to level 9 with your eco.
I can see this Katarina struggling against this Pantheon specifically, but it looks like we're going to be okay. Too much damage coming in from those assassins, and we've got utility for the Diana, and then just raw damage from Nocturne. That was not close, as Andy is going to fall with all of those tier 3 units. It's going to be Swagatron versus Maestro. Maestro doesn't have a lot of room to mess up here, as Swagatron has the tier 3 Yasuo, the tier 3 Riven, and I think another tier 3 unit as well in their backline. But really, the tier 3 that really matters here is look at that Nocturne, look at that Katarina. If either of them get CC'd, it's going to be very, very hard for Maestro to come back from that.
This is, yeah, where the positioning matters of where he's putting this Diana, so doesn't seem... I mean, I guess there's not too many backline units he really cares about. I mean, the Karma doesn't have damage items, so not going to be a problem, but might as well just store it at the back to deal with that Draven and the Karma, but there's still a lot of HP that Swagatron has to lose before this could turn into elimination, so there's so much pressure on Maestro's shoulders, but these level 3s, and there's the Revenant kicking in for the Nocturne, and man, that swipe does so much damage.
Yeah, and that lifesteal too, and with the Revenant, I mean, you basically get a couple chances when it comes to that Nocturne, especially if that Nocturne dies on the 3rd attack. It will come back to life with that lifesteal. So Omaestro needs to win 2 more rounds in order to take a second victory. No Coven Spat, so we're just going to be rocking the regular Covens. Shojin's is going to be the name of the game, and it's going to go on Rise. It looks like we want to get a little bit more CC, even though we did quite well in that last round. Ooh, now we have a Viego.
I was just thinking that Lissandra level 1 was kind of ugly, so maybe like a Coven Spat onto just any other unit so you could put something better in. Maybe it would have been just as much value, but hey, these guys are the stars, not me. So, deciding to get rid of Coven entirely to get more Mystics and, of course, get that Viego going to see if they can turn over one of these units on the other side.
I mean, especially with so many tier 3 units on that side, if we're able to turn any of them, it'll be a huge victory. Look at that HP regeneration from the Nocturne. These assassins look strong. That was almost a full wipe. Round 6-6. It looks like we are actually going to make it to round 7-1. If Omaestro wins again, it'll come down to that last round as 10 HP is the base damage for round 6, which turns into 15 for round 7, as tier 2 Rise is going to help with that CC, which is going to be brutal against these Legionnaires in general. I mean, pretty much if that Rise gets that second ult off, everyone in the front line is gone because there's just too much damage happening too quickly from these assassins.
I guess I mean, Maestro's chilling. I mean, this is just a matter of time before they get first, so I'm not too worried. Maybe, I guess, the only thing I would have thought about is maybe putting the Shojins on Viego so he could have had that second transformation ult online quicker, but they're winning by, above 3 units. So that's really just nitpicking. I can't really criticize perfection. Swagatron might have one more fight to go before second place, but at this point, Boop, are you like FFing when you know you can't beat someone, or do you just go to the end? You
got to go to the end. You got to play it out, right? I actually have a really big issue with people who give up.
I tilt a bit.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk about it at the break anyway. But the 18 HP Zeeks for Maestro, I didn't quite catch the second item for our friend AJSwagatron, who has had a really good game, has led pretty much from end to end, except for this particular moment, and I think got countered a little bit when it came to the team comp that ended up in the final two.
Yeah, might as well throw it down to Cat. I mean, she already has one item. Who else would really benefit from that? So now you're just gonna have increased attack speed. So what a great item for Maestro. I mean, was already winning without it. Now it's pretty good. Now, not thinking about level 9. This will be decided in this next fight.
He just spends all of his
Scroll
gold.
down.
Yeah, you can't carry your gold on to the next round anyway. And that Nocturne got even stronger with that Zeke, so it'll be really tough for Swagatron to come back. And even though we switched corners, it seems like we're trying to target that Nocturne specifically, but there's just too much lifesteal, too much damage, and this is going to be a second lobby win in a row for Maestro. I mean, Marcel broke the record 2 weeks ago, which was, I think, 37 points. We got 2 lobby wins. We're on track to maybe tie it, maybe even break it. Omaestro having quite the 3 weeks of fight night here as we get done with our second lobby with a second win from Maestro.
Maestro just orchestrating just these perfect assassin comps and just realizing his win condition of at least level 3 and putting the right items on the right carry, because that's what's really kind of dizzying at the start of assassins, because it can be kind of weak until you get them level 2, and then how many assassins do you want? Do you want to do assassin 4 around a coven or go full assassin 6? And what items do you put on Viego and what you really care about? So Nocturne really pop out, and especially with the Deathblade, or the Deathblade was huge.
All right, let's take a look at those scores. We know Maestro is going to be at the top with a perfect score, and then everybody else is going to be right below that. 2 at 11, 1 at 13, 10 at 11, 3, 3. And again, if you're more Dogcat or Nixer right now, you're still in the running. It's only been 2 lobbies, but Maestro, you're kind of playing your own game right now. Are you going to be able to do the clean sweep? He's been playing really well. And what you said, I think really ring true, which is Maestro is playing the late game arguably the best out of every single person that we've seen today.
Yeah, and that dark blue buff, I think we saw a dark blue buff early slam from them or somebody in this lobby, and that's where it's like, that really solidifies like your assassin direction, because usually any spell weavers, anyone who's going to use that blue buff, it's usually just regular blue buff, dark blue buff really the best on those assassins. And just, we talked about flexibility at the start of this show, and how just what items you use early can really determine your direction. Usually people stay flexible with tank items, but those dark blue buffs kind of gave us hints to us as casters of where people are going.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's been a day of assassins. Let's see if it's going to maintain that popularity in our second half of lobbies after this quick break.
Welcome back, everybody, to Fight Night Rising. I'm not Khroen, but most importantly, this is Booposaurus, and we're going to go into the second half of our show today, where we've had some surprises and everything meeting expectation, but one big star that's shining bright is Maestro with 2 first places in a row.
Yeah, running Assassins, 2 different comps, actually, I think, for 2 different lobbies, getting first place in each. One thing that Maestro does really well is play that late game, arguably the best that we've seen so far today, keeps the early game super flexible, and getting to play his own game, which is best case scenario when you come into a tournament setting for sure.
Yeah, a lot of Assassins and a few Nightbringers. I mean, just in this last lobby, it was Andy versus Nyx and maybe one other person for these Nightbringers, where I think Andy was really propelled into that top 4 because of how many level 3 Nightbringers he was able to do, kind of that Hoarders episode on the bench. And I think even Maestro was giving him the question marks of like, why do you have these level 3 Nightbringers?
I mean, Nightbringers, I feel like can feel like a little bit of a bait because a lot of those units are strong as Nightbringers themselves. You've got the Yasuo, for example, but I think you can get baited into committing a little bit too much into it because then you have to sacrifice a Ranger or another Legionnaire, for example. So we usually stick around the 4 Nightbringers in that situation.
Well, we can take a look at the leaderboard to see how that's shaping up for anyone just tuning in. Maestro with the 2 first places and still in for first place for this lobby, but hey, kind of mixed up. I think everyone is either having a good day or a bad day. Kind of jolly with a really good first lobby and then not so much second lobby.
Yeah, a very polarizing day for some of our players here. I think Khan has actually been playing incredibly consistently, and that always goes into that question of, is it better to first or 8th in a tournament setting, or is it better to, consistently get top 4? We've had winners go either direction. But Maestro is in record-breaking territory. If we get 2nd or higher on this next round, we could break the record going into the 4th lobby and completely destroy the 3-week curse. But it sounds like we're about to get into this next lobby. So what can we expect? We talked about Maestro a bit, but is there anything that you've seen from other players that you've been impressed by today so far, Lemon?
I've just seen a few people, I wanted to talk about Nyx, because it's been 2 lobbies in a row where they're in that bottom 4, and I kind of want to talk about why once the lobby is ready, we'll jump into it. Where Nightbringers, I do feel like early game is pretty weak because you're really relying on Vlad and Sejuani, because usually the good Nightbringer units are very expensive. Your Aphelios, your Diana, everything is, pretty, was it Lee Sin isn't, a unit you really care about in Nightbringer, as in to itemize and stuff. But we've seen kind of both times where Nyx would go for the first lobby, went for like a renewer early game start, kind of lost streak, lost a bunch of HP, probably used up a bunch of money to try and level 2 stuff and just find something, and then couldn't find that direction lobby 1. And then lobby 2 went for Nightbringers, where had issues maybe level 2ing some stuff, had to compete against other players for Nightbringers. So I'm really hoping someone like Nyx can just find a really strong opener and then just save money a little bit and just try to get to level 8 without basically bleeding out.
Nyx has, I feel like, plays a lot like me. The idea is there. The practice, not so much when it needs to actually happen, right? Like, I saw Karuma open fort one time and lost about 258 LP because of it. Because it's like, I see a pro do it, and you're like, I can do that, but you can't because you're not as good. That's just the name of the game. And so what I think he needs to do is just be a little bit calm, take a little bit of that Maestro approach, which is be the conductor of your own train. Right? Don't let other people determine how you're going to approach this lobby. Even though you should, I think, should kind of force what you're good at. As Nyxers had a little bit of a hard time. War Dogcat started out this way last week, by the way, and then got top 2s, I think, in the last 2 lobbies. So don't count anyone out. And also, I don't know if anyone saw the background change, but happy Pride, everybody. We have a nice little Pride month happening right now, so we wanted to give a little bit of a shout out there before we get into our 3rd lobby. We've got 20 points for Omaestro. That is a perfect score, friends, and we've got a lot of money and no items for Omaestro right now. So we're either going to get more money and 1 item from this, or we're going to get 2 blue orbs from this NPC round.
And I just really like that Maestro got a Spellweaver with Rod as one of their first units, because although maybe things like Karma and Vel'Koz aren't as popular anymore, just because backline units in general are kind of squishy and kind of scary when assassins and tanky comps like Cavaliers are the flavor of the month. Where with that Rod, anything from a Locket is a super flexible tank item to a Jewel Gauntlet if you decide to go in that firm AP direction, where Yasuo and Brand kind of come to mind as very strong units that can carry that. But as we take a look at Khroen, thinking about that RFC slam where maybe anything from Riven to Yasuo to Kale, really so many units can use that RFC, but it's not a super flexible item like a tank item. So you're really starting to make that direction happen if you go RFC. So kind of deciding against it.
Yeah, remember, I am a full of mantras. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm kind of like a walking fortune cookie. I have like a phrase for everything, right?
Oh God.
You know, if you're struggling with, you know, with this, I have a phrase for you to help you feel better about yourself. The mantra here is components are always going to be more flexible than completed items, always, right? So if you're worried about flexibility, then don't complete the item. But if you're a part of that group that thinks that, like, okay, it's not a very flexible meta, let me just build the RFC because it's going to go on Yasuo anyway, right? Let me just do it now because that's where I'm going to be going anyway. A lot kind of skirmishers before where you would just build Jax items when you got them. Right now, we're seeing items get chosen a little bit more slowly, a little bit more intentionally. I think someone might have picked up that Rod immediately there if you weren't really thinking exactly on how you're going to go. Because if you build that if you build that Ginsu's, right, all of a sudden you're locked into that particular type of team comp. But we're going to go ahead and put that RFC on. He's not going to miss anything, but where is that going to go later? That's always going to be the question.
Yeah, I guess like now that he has kind of like a redeem flavor going on, you still have that Legionnaire window open with the Aatrox, but then you would have to sell the Aatrox to get that item off. So this is for that early power spike to just stop loose streaking, I'm assuming, and then having the vest and the HP. I always like throwing up a Sunfire, especially early game. It does so much damage on a tank unit that lasts a long time, but especially with how important a GA or even a Warmogs is for people like Mordekaiser, you want to keep maybe those items and, like you said, keep things flexible. But we'll see what that RFC ends up being. I would think for some kind of Legionnaire character.
Yeah, what did Khan play last game? I think he played A-Bomb. So definitely has played A-Bomb at least once before today. And that RFC could be really good on that Abomination if we get there. As it really looks like people lucking into, not really lucking into, but people hitting on the A-Bomb or the other kind of like three splash openers. You've got the Redeems, you've got the A-Bombs, you've got Draconics, for example. That seems to be the way to go for these openers so far.
Yeah, I think if they could get even a Redeemed in, since you already have Aatrox as your sort of damage dealer right now. You have the Knight too, which is great early game, but yeah, I wouldn't mind a redeemed unit, I think, at the next level, just to as a great opener, as Java has Hellions going, where kind of less about getting level 3s. Kind of before it was Hellion rerolls, you're just trying to get as many level 3s as possible, 3 being kind of the minimum, because they're all very cheap one cost. But now it's more about just not dying for head emoji and just going for Teemo at level 8 or 9 and trying to have the HP left to buy it.
Teemo is so good. I mean, damage on the ultimate will automatically win every 1v1 in the game, right? Turns into a Fizz ultimate, and will just eat you if you're literally just eat you if you're a 1v1 by Teemo. But it also affects attack speed. So if you are going up against Power Rangers, for example, that Hellion Invoker comp is especially good against it. You might think, oh, Aphelios is going to be able to one-shot a lot of those Hellions, but if that Teemo ult lands on that Aphelios, that attack damage over time just isn't going to be where it should be. As Javaday having a little bit of a struggle von Fuggles here with this Hellion comp. This is the second time we've seen the Hellion opening kind of stay on the bottom side of the leaderboard, especially since, like what you said, we're not re-rolling it anymore.
Yeah, wishing you had Hellion 5, where seems like they're kind of hovering over, do they want to pivot into Cavaliers off of the Kled, or do you kind of go Hellion 5 and see where you end up when you get closer to getting, you know, your 3 and 4 costs, stuff like that. But since this Hellion is probably going to be the best board, everyone benefiting from the attack speed, I really do agree with this. And keeping that Hecarim, as of course you have Shadow Thief's Gloves on the bench, you maybe you don't want to leave it to RNG on your carry like a Hecarim, but Shadow Thief's Gloves, if they do go Cavaliers, Forgotten 3 kind of becomes a natural stat when you have the Victor Spellweaver, and then you have the Hecarim, and you throw a Rise in eventually. The Forgotten buff will be important, and then maybe Shadow Thief's Gloves will be.
I like Shadow Thief's Gloves, especially if you just happen to have them at the end of the round and you just need your Hecarim. I think is a great person to put it on because he benefits from a lot of those Shadow defensive items, Shadow Redemption, Shadow Titans, Shadow Locket even, which I think is pretty underrated. I think a lot of the Shadow kind of crossed items, the Shadow Trap Claw, Shadow Locket, Shadow Chalice, all can still kind of find their way into a comp. It's just we're spreading our damage out a little bit with the abominations, right? So the items go on separate people in the abominations, and the people that were intentionally investing power into the Yasuos really need those trip items. So that kind of late game flexibility just to throw a Thief's Gloves on a Hecarim, for example, just doesn't appear that often. That doesn't mean it doesn't ever happen.
I saw a really interesting item slam of a Shadow GA on a brand. So that tells me whoever that is not sticking onto a brand, because for anyone who doesn't use Shadow GA a lot, kind of messes with your attack speed. I think, was it 50% reduction? So usually you want to put that on a tank or someone who is going to be attacked a lot so that they can just build up mana from that and not have to worry about attack speed as much. But brand is not going to be attacked, at least preferably. So that, yeah, I wonder what that's going to turn into.
There are much worse people to put that on, is True. What I would say, right? Like, Brand is not the bottom of the leaderboard when it comes to Shadow GA holders. Like, if you're gonna Shadow GA somebody, like people like Jax or Kale are probably going to be way up there on people that aren't that good with it. But this brand is going to at least be able to, has such a low mana pool that even with it, I think 1 or 2 auto attacks or 1 auto attack plus getting 2 on them will be enough to get that ult off. As these Cavaliers, this is where I get like a little nervous. We're not going to beat Krugs. A player not beating an NPC round has only ever happened once at Fight Night, and for some reason it was Wolves. But yeah, we're gonna be fine with the Krugs. We have an Ecos. We're going over to Mort Dog Cat, who is trying much harder now. The jacket is off, friends. The jacket is off. We are leaned in. You know that meme where you're leaning back, and then all of a sudden things get harder, and then you lean forward. That's Mort Dog Cat right now.
Yeah, they got the North Star right above their forehead of just praying this renewer comp is going somewhere. I just don't like running renewers because you're just dependent on finding that Ivern or high rolling an Ivern, and you're not going to get that for several levels. And renewer as an opener isn't that great IMO unless you are able to level 2 them. And seems like they're working on getting Lissandra level 3 and having that Leona in just because she's kind of a level 2 unit. She's acting as a tank, but already on a 3-loss streak. You're in 6th place. Mort Dog is probably going to lose some more HP, but man, their eco is pretty good. They'll be able to just natural to 5.
Yep, and way more confident than me because I will never appear without sleeves on camera, friends. That's just never going to happen. It's just not. I'm sorry. Getting a haircut was a lot for me. Anyway,
aren't you built like the monstrosity? What the heck?
Yeah, I'm yoked, but I can't show anyone because I don't want anyone to feel
You're married.
Bad. Yeah,
that
I guess.
too.
Yeah,
I guess.
Is that a car? Anyway, so Jolly Faker sitting on the bottom of the leaderboard with Javaday. That actually has been the name of the game for Jolly Faker so far, who seems to be going that assassin route. Getting into a Nocturne 2 at this point in time is moderately early, so we can expect Jolly to win a couple more rounds as Mort Dog Cat slow rolling a little bit, staying above 50 gold, but not really getting much stronger. I think we really want to move those items over to LeBlanc here soon, but we don't have that LeBlanc 2 just yet.
Yeah, this is the Shadow Joe Gauntlet. I think when you start off with less HP or something like that. But yeah, they also skipped out on the Rel that they high rolled, where I think a Cavalier 2 frontline, if they could have incorporated, would have been just have some kind of tank, just have just take out a unit or two because it's a little bit strong. I think there's just a one ult from Lissandra takes out 1 or 2, and now you're on a 5 loss streak and you're taking a lot of HP out with it.
But at least we're rich. Right? At least we've got money, right? And confidence. But the moral of the story here is that we're going to have to do something with this money here very, very soon. We can't just keep hemorrhaging HP to where we have, 40 HP at Wolves. That's just not going to equal a win, as we're going to pick up another Spellweaver, some Legionnaires. We're definitely going to see this Lissandra get sold, because the blue buff giantslayer Jewel Gauntlet can go on that LeBlanc quite well. Blue buff just in general, but it seems like we're going to keep it on the Lissandra for now, as look how good we're actually managing our economy at the moment, as Coven buff going to be going on the Lissandra, and we're just going to keep it going for now, and maybe push for a 4th renewer with that Ivern and if we are able to hit 2% it here in the next couple rounds.
Yeah. Just that Giant Slayer. I guess it'll be good against all those abominations, as you mentioned, but more maybe a late game
so
thought.
much damage to herself.
Oh boy, yeah. But that's also your only source of damage. So as long as Lissandra stays alive, but this monstrosity is about to mess her up, and that's where you're continuing to loss streak. Now on a 6th loss for Mort Dog Cat. It's not looking good.
That's what you call bloodlust, friends, without Lissandra. The worst bloodbender you'll ever see on the Convergence is that Lissandra. That was a lot of self-damage. Probably did more damage to herself than actually was done to her. Yeah, 99 HP at the top means that we lost to an Abomination or a tier 0 Hellion. So we're going to be able to see what everyone else is going after. The shadow items do seem to be a little bit of a priority for our Abomination players. And we do have 3 of them on this carousel. 1 already getting picked up. Andy, who loves that re-rolled Nightbringer, is going to get a bow on that Diana tier. And a belt probably for Nixer. Oh. It was actually going to be... Yep, it's going to be the tier. Abominations are online right now. We have a spat, too, so all we need is a Shadow Cloak, and we can get an Abomination spat, which would be huge for any Abomination player, really.
Yeah, that's that blue buff I was mentioning. How one of the most important items on brand, so it's really almost increased your damage by about 50%, just being able to ult every other auto attack, so super important to get that up first. That's why a lot of people actually like those tier starts, but yeah, glad Nixer was able to get that going. Also having the spat, I think it's Shadow Glove for Abomination, and where it's not necessary to make Abomination pop off, you can also, I think, Revenant, and there's all kinds of spats you can think about. But so far, this monstrosity, this Abomination comp, is working out.
Yeah, one of the best early game comps I ever had was I lucked into a Revenant spat and was able to just put a Nocturne in, and my Abomination would res with the with the Revenant spat. It was really, really fun. I ended up getting like 3rd, but it was totally worth it. We are on a roll now. This is exactly what we wanted to see from Nixer, right, Lemon? Like, we absolutely needed to see Nixer start off strong, because so far this hasn't happened. The early game for Nixer has been rough so far.
Just funny to me that they're at 99. So, like, did they lose to a monstrosity or a Hellion, like a baby Hellion? Because it's just, I always like win streaking with 100, not 99, because it's kind of an eyesore. But as we kind of glance through all the compositions, I think we are seeing someone develop an assassin composition with Coven, so gotta worry about that.
I'm just everyone going after Abomination, and the interesting thing about Abomination is a lot of people can. It's not like locked out like old school mech, which like one person could win with, but if 2 people were running, you'd hold hands into last place. But with these Abomination comps, it really just seems like we're going to lock them in. Let's get our 3 or 4 A-bombs. Let's get some items on him, and then let's just see how the rest of the game goes. Kind of like Cultist, right? How you never really stayed on Cultist last set. You would come out of Cultist at some point. We've got some people staying on Abomination. We've got some people transitioning out of it. It's been really interesting to see how that kind of works. Is about half the lobby seems to be going or attempting to go Abomination every single time.
This is where you're rolling down just to find anything and everything, especially bringing up the Karma. She can be a good like Spellweaver item holder, but just it takes time for her to ramp up. So people don't really like her inconsistencies, especially, I say that with experience because I've gotten 2 8th places last night trying to run Karma, and it's very sad. But, and I'm not saying that she's a Spellweaver, but just because of the Dawnbringer buff that you're getting with running Gragas as your secondary brawler early game, then it just kind of seems natural to run the Karma because she's a 4-cost. But deciding to skip on that and picking up some Dawnbringers here and there. There you go. Level 2 Riven. We like that.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and put our A-bomb items on now. The GA is going to be going on the Mordekaiser. Okay, so we're going to be going into Legionnaires here. We have the Riven too. So all we need is that Yasuo. We might be able to push for Legionnaires, but there's already a Mordekaiser 2 4-1 Warmog's QSS for Khan, and that is going to be rough to get through. Doesn't matter how many units are remaining. This Mordekaiser should be good to go. Mordekaiser 2 better than Mordekaiser 1. Who knew?
But we saw Khan at the very start of this game. Remember when he slammed that RFC on the Aatrox and we were wondering where that RFC was going to go?
Yep.
And what did I say? It was going to be a Legionnaire. And it ended up being on that Yasuo. And probably decided his direction, having a lot of AP items, Yasuo being a better holder of AP. If he would have gotten more AD, maybe you think about Mordekaiser or Riven as your Legionnaire. I guess Draven has won a couple lobbies. I'm a Draven hater, but I'll still play it because I like LP. But also, now you have a Draven on your board, kind of need him to be level 2 or else he's kind of really squishy and bad.
Speaking of not best case scenarios, rolling all the way down to 0, selling the bench to 10, which is fine for now, but we would have really loved some of that gold to maybe continue and slow roll to 8, but now we're kind of just trapped. If we lose, we lose. If we win, we win. There's not a lot of self-vacancy that we can use for this particular comp, and you were right. It ended up being a Lissandra 3. Hopefully that means that we're done killing ourselves. Close. We almost did. That time we almost did that time, but thank goodness for that little bit of extra HP along with that Giant Slayer. And this is where Giant Slayers are going to start really holding their value. It's going to start ripping that HP apart.
Yeah, because it's like 80%. If they're tanky enough too. I just all these items are a little bit weird for Swagatron. Like you have a Shadow Hurricanes on someone who's not going to be autoing like crazy, but again, you're spreading out your items so the Abomination can get one of each, and then you have a blue buff on Mordekaiser, so probably still needs to sort those out because I don't think those are the best items for those characters. But we get to go see what Andy is up to, who I think, first lobby 6th place, but ever since he was the one who level 3'd a bunch of Nightbringers in lobby 2, and now lobby 3 they have some Rangers going.
And Draconic, doing the Draconic run back. Hopefully the run back is better than the first jog, the first little jaunt around the convergence, because we got 8th or 7th with that Draconic comp, and we also have a very strong A-bomb in. That Ashe is just going to get bursted down by the Ziggs and the Callista in the back line. Javaday with another Abomination comp. I think that's 3 in a row for Java, as Andy struggling a little bit on the bottom side of that leaderboard, which is to be expected, but this is going to be where things start getting a little hard because you've got to get that Heimerdinger. There it is. We do have our 5 Draconics, and we have 45 HP to play with.
I guess I got baited by, pick up the Ashe with the sword because it's going to pop off and that would get you Ashe 3. But with some Eggies sitting on the bench, you're probably having some baby Ashes in there, maybe. So not having to do that, but going for, like you said, the Heimerdinger, and wonder if that turns into a Rage Blade or if they want to keep that unit.
Yeah. Eggies is gross, and I never want to hear that term again.
Eggies.
The little Eggies. Oh God, we can't let ourselves get there. Okay, let's bring it back real quick. If you leave Lemon and I to our own devices for at any given amount of time, we will start using voices and won't stop. So we're just keeping everyone here.
Voices too.
Yeah, we're just keeping everyone here safe because we're annoying. Just kidding. As Andy now, though, is still with the full bench, doesn't have a ton of time to use those golden draconic eggs. That's probably why we still have, as it wasn't a mistake to have 4 draconic and wasn't on purpose. A lot of people don't go all 5 because, again, once you get there, you don't really have a lot of time to hatch those eggs anyway, and we're going to lose. So this is all bad news for Andy.
Yeah, he came across a few Varuses in his Varai. I don't know the plural of that, Varai in the shop, where maybe if I were him, I would have sold those Zyras. I think going level 3 Zyra is a bit of a bait. I think it's better to have the eco there and then pick up those Varuses. A lot of people have been pulling off these Varus, quote, reroll compositions where you get him to level 3 because he's kind of cracked. And especially with that Rage Blade, and you're starting to put items on Varus, I would maybe prioritize him level 3 instead of Zyra. But, ooh, that Ashe level 3 is going to be a huge power spike.
Yeah, and we actually did a little bit of a mess up where the egg gave us gold because we didn't have bench space. So we could have actually gotten an Ashe for free. I mean, that's super nitpicky, but, you know, in the highest levels of TFT, that extra gold could be a level up. You know what I mean? Going into level 8, how much are we going to roll down? We're keeping the Ivern around for now. That Varus actually has pretty much done everything it can at tier 1. It's really all coming down to this Ashe, and you know that Ashe hasn't really been doing that well when it comes to that first lobby, which got us that 7th or 6th place.
You said dat Ashe, and I thought you did that on purpose. But, oh, man, SEC from the Volibear is buying so much time, but this is going to be a heavy loss for Andy. Still needing to kind of balance that front line with the back line, and that's where I'm starting to think the Zyra isn't going to help too much. It's kind of like a CC bot, and not too much helping in the damage department. But the more Draconics you have, kind of like the better eggs and stuff. Having the Ivern too. I wonder who comes in instead of the Zyra, though, because you just kind of need more frontline units. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that we are half committing to a couple things as opposed to full committing to Draconic 5. We sold the Heimerdinger earlier that we got with that bow that ended up turning into really nothing that important. So
the Rage Blade, yeah.
Yeah, and the Rage Blade on the Varus is good, but was better about 7 rounds ago. So we'll see if we at least have an Ivern 2, but there's no renewer buff. We have the Zyra 3, but again, we saw this happen to Andy last round, or 2 lobbies ago, for example, and we still got 7th or 6th, for example. These tier 3 units aren't kind of locking top 4s as they used to back in the day, but we might have been able to stabilize at 5-1 over 50 gold. So if we are able to win 4 or 5 rounds in a row, we can set ourselves up for level 8 and possibly 9 later down the road.
So I guess with that Zyra level 3, now you're locked into Zyra jail. So I'm thinking now you take out Udyr, and it's kind of tough. Do you do invokers, find another invoker just to get more mana so you can have more CC? Because really what the power from Draconic comes from it just being a CC chain. Once that Ashe gets going, it's just arrows every couple of seconds, and then you have the Zyra on top. But then it really kind of sometimes lacks in damage. You know, you have a lot of CC, but you sacrifice that damage, and it's kind of coming into fruition here of lacking in that damage, and Andy is on the verge of being knocked out in 8th.
Oh, this is very unfortunate for Andy, as it seemed like Andy was figuring, their stuff out. Got the top 4 on that last round, and we didn't even need the Draconics for 3-starring our Zyra or our Ashe. So we just hit on those, and it's still not enough. That's a nice little pickup. Viego is always going to be helpful, and we're going to roll past the Rels. We're going to pick them up, maybe just to block them from someone else. Rel's not really showing up as much as before, especially with those Cav nerfs and Ironclad just not being as strong with the comps that are available right now. But we're gonna roll down, not get a Rel 2, but keep the Rel on the bench when that whole time we could have just Rel 2'd the hindsight's 2020, of course, but we could have just had a Rel 2 to put in at this point in time with CC, which is going to be very nice for this comp.
Okay, they got rid of the Mordekaiser. Very winnable. As soon as you deal with the Draven, then this is pretty much done. So as long as those Rangers remain untouched, should be fine. You got 2 Dancing Iverns. So Andy lives to tell another tale as we find out what the fate of Mort Dog Cat is, because they're also on the verge of being knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, Lemon. This last 4 rounds by Andy has been intriguing. Based on how it's just one of those things where I feel like, and I'm going to be completely honest here, we were rewarded for a little bit of bad behavior. We made a couple mistakes, but we still rolled into our tier 3 units, right? And we still might end up getting 8th. I think the assassin players are going to have a pretty easy time with this comp. But the moral of the story here is we got a little lucky, I think. And Andy, even with all that luck, might still get 8th place. So we still need to position correctly. We still need to try to make our comp a little bit stronger, especially since Draconic 4 isn't necessarily that great. And we could put in a second Renewer. We can put in a Spellweaver. We could put in a second Invoker, for example. But that just doesn't seem to be that priority at the moment. It doesn't need to be.
So having the 2 Iverns and then Volibear, this is just the CC chain, like, and the fact that Rageblade takes time to ramp up, as long as they don't get CC'd, I could see the damage output for Andy being okay, and Mordog losing that brings him to 2 HP, so maybe Andy can save himself from 8th place, but there's a Teemo there, and he thought about it, but now has to go for more of a utility item to perk up the attack speed of those Rangers.
Okay, like, I get it, but but I man. Okay, so who is the second Invoker? It's the Ivern, which he already has a mini Ivern on the field. Okay, so we're going to go over to Khroen instead and see what happens to Andy. Frontline on that Morgana. Actually, giantslayer at this point might rip through some HP, but unfortunately it is still at tier 1. One more roll. Ooh, we got the Skirmisher instead. And, you know, honestly, if Lee Sin is going to be able to get an ult off, attack speed debuff is always going to be quite good, especially along with that Frozen Heart on the Diana, which we seem to be seeing Diana get built tankier and tankier as time goes on.
And I like that QSS on the Mordekaiser. So normal QSS, 12 seconds, Shadow QSS is permanent CC immunity. And then you have the Thief's Gloves, which I'm thinking this is just, you know, for Nightbringer 4. Maybe you can even take since she's only level 1, you can maybe take these off of her and put her on something else, like even a Diana, just so she has extra stats to live as she tosses everyone up. But yeah.
That Mordekaiser is beefy. I mean, a lot of calcium in that diet for Mordekaiser. Oh, also, here's a real piece of trivia. Mordekaisers, I like to say this a lot because it's like one of the few pieces of trivia I know. But Mordekaiser, all of the sound effects from his character are guitar sounds. Every single one is made from a guitar outside of his voice lines.
I've never touched a guitar. Wouldn't know. You taught me things.
I know, right?
Your music degree. Look at you.
Look at this. Dragonslayer 4, Nightbringer 4, Skirmisher 3, Legionnaire. This is pretty much like the best of all of those comps, right? You've got the Mordekaiser, you've got the Yasuo. You're really feeling good there. You've got your Skirmisher Splash for a little bit of extra, late round damage, but it's going to be tough against the CC. That's the thing about Mordekaiser, for example, and some of our Nightbringers is they are susceptible to that CC. And I've never really seen two daisies dance with each other on the field before.
There's 2 mini Volibears as well. They're going 2 Ivern, 2 Volibears, just to CC chain the heck out of everyone, just so they can keep that Rageblade built up going for those Rangers. Andy was scraping by where we thought it was going to be in 8th place, but they're on a win streak right now. So I think especially against this Legionnaire comp or Legionnaire, Dragonslayer, Nightbringer, blah, 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 con comp, it's going to be really susceptible to CC. So I'm thinking these are going to be just the losses that he has to expect, especially when your only anti-CC is a single QSS on a Mordekaiser.
And not only is going to last for the beginning portion of the round, somehow Andy's still around. Oh, we do get a Nikos, which is much better in the late game because you have access to those units. Going to skip by the Viego. Looks like if we're going to use the Nikos, it'll be on a Darius. If on anyone, we might switch out the Lee Sin maybe, but we have a nice little combination of units here. Look how close this lobby is. This Jolly Faker gets the Kindred 2. Andy gets the Volibear 2, and now needs to find another unit to put
another one. I agree with, so it's like Viego, if you really were having issues with the backline opposition, so I'm thinking about these Rangers, if you can just throw the Viego to CC them, to stop the Rachel Blade from building up, and to stop the damage from coming in. But then that means you either have to sacrifice 4 Nightbringer by getting rid of Lee Sin, or you sacrifice the 4 Dragon Slayer, which is extra AP for your Yasuo that splashed on. So yeah, it's just really hard to have to get rid of one of those things just for the chance for Viego to maybe transform one person on the other side. But good win from Khroen.
And the miracle will end in 7th place, friends, as Andy does get eliminated in 7th place, which is higher than I expected, to be completely honest with you, the way that that was going. For Draconics is notoriously not that great, even at tier 3. Like you said, it's CC, but not a ton of damage. All the damage was coming from that Ashe because we sold Heimer and then passed a Rail 2, but then we still made 7th place. I'm going to have to rewatch that. Anyway, 6-2, 27 HP leading the board. Maestro might be at elimination station right now for the first time in a while. It's been about like 5 or 6 consecutive top 4s for Omaestro. Is the streak going to end right now?
I guess I don't hate the Thief's Gloves on the Morgana. I was kind of thinking maybe you could use this on someone else, but I guess Morgana really does benefit from damage and tank at the same time, which is usually the favored target of a Thief's Gloves. But as these last fights are going by, man, we're dodging some eliminations just on the cusp of top 4, but no, there it is. Nyx is out.
Oh, man, Nyx is going to be taken out, giving Omaestro a top 4 as we are running a classic Dragon Slayer Legionnaire comp. I love Hextech Gunblade on a Mordekaiser. But as you see the positioning here, this has been very common where you position your front line opposite where your back line is, depending on where the rest of the leaderboard is positioning. And with only 4 people remaining, you have to position for every single person. So if there are Zephyrs, if there's anything along those lines, you're going to be scouting pretty heavily during these rounds.
I remember, I haven't seen like a Shadow Trap Claw in a long time. I remember when it was like it forces a 1v1 with whoever casts an ability on you, but
it's CC now.
Now it's CC, yeah. It's like they changed the shadow items so much. Like some of the items were like you take damage at the start of the fight. Now it's like every crit or something. And I like that they're kind of balancing things like this. Or that's gonna be it for them. Maybe if you can maybe you could have CC'd the monstrosity with the trap claw or like assassins and stuff. But the Draven, not enough to clutch it up. So now we have our top 3.
Yeah, all within 9 HP of each other. So this is going to be a rock, paper, scissors situation. Are we going to get a double elimination like last time? Or are we going to make it to... We're not making it to round 7. It is impossible, pretty much, to make it to round 7. So we have about 2 more rounds to go. RFC for Swagatron. We pick up the Heimerdinger. We roll 1 time. Where is the RFC going to go? Of course, it's going to go on Riven. We're going to scout a little bit more. We still have a Nikos from Khan. Java has an item component still on the bench. We sell the Gragas just to free up the Zephyr, which is a big reason why we actually won that last round. So it's going to be Zephyr games, my friends. This is one of the best parts of TFT, in my opinion, is Zephyr placements and how good you are at it.
Yeah, the RFC is just going to be benefited from any close range character, but still the range is rather small, but that just means someone else will soak up the damage for Riven, especially with that armor shred. I love Last Whisper, especially for these tanky units, but this Mord is just chomping down on everybody, and the only thing they have to worry about is monstrosity, but if that's the only unit left, it should be fine.
Yep, we got to that ultimate. It's going to be 4-3 swipes because we got that crit. Javaday is going to win out another round. We actually might get all 4 people still in the game for this next round. So we are going to make it to round 7 as 11, 7, and 2 are the HP totals. Javaday hanging on with literally a pinky. He's about to get Mufasa though by the rest of the lobby probably as he falls down to his death.
I wonder if this was the Swagatron. Remember there was an Abomination person who had the Shadow Hurricanes on the brand, and I kind of hated it. And they had a blue buff Mordekaiser. I'm glad that those items ended up moving around, putting the blue buff on the rise, some form of CC, frontlining the Lulu, maybe to just get that first cast off when they take damage. And then that the Kindred at the back just so she can ult and maybe protect these backline units, pulling back the Riven in case someone jumps at the back. But clumping up your units like this is going to be rough against the Teemo.
Yeah, especially against the Teemo. And the Lulu in the front line guarantees a polymorph on someone on the front line as well. So you get attack speed, you get the polymorph, but as you kind of predicted, the Teemo was able to do a ton of damage, but was that the end of the round? Javaday is going to fall. Oh, double. Oh. Is this the bug? Yep. So you literally experienced that the other day.
Oh my
but yes,
God.
we do get a double elimination, and we have a lobby winner. Omaestro will not be getting the record, will not tie the record either. Actually could. Nope. Marcel P got it by 1 point, but that was very close. By far the closest lobby we've had today.
We saw how Khroen, when he slammed that RFC within like stage 2, he really solidified his direction towards the Legionnaires, and even some more RFCs popping up with kind of these melee ranged characters like Ribbon. And then we saw Swagatron with the Abomination Legionnaire, and then Mortdog with the Renewer start, I think. So we had a lot of variety there.
A lot of variety. I mean, that was the only lobby so far that we haven't had like a true 6 Sins player, right? The 6 deadly sins weren't around for that lobby, and so there's a little bit more of an opportunity for some of those Mordekaiser comps to do a little bit better, as the Nocturnes seem to really just brush through that HP. As we go into the scores, going into the last lobby, Omaestro should be leading the pack still, but who is following? It's going to be Khroen at 23 and Swagatron at 19. Remember, the top 3 do come back next week.
Top 4 get some money, so even though you don't get an invite, you get $25 for your troubles, so that's always cool. And yeah, it seems like it's still going to be that battle for 3rd and 4th place of who's going to get that invite. That's all going to be decided in the next lobby. Yeah, Maestro might not get the consistent 1st place, but I mean, I think he got consistent 1st from just running a lot of assassins, and you're seeing that there's not too many backline carries making it too far, especially with these monstrosities that come in, and with one swipe, one backhand, the whole backline gets eliminated. I think we saw that one of the last fights. So, man, abominations are scary.
Yeah, abominations are appearing everywhere and have been win streaking. Not just winning, but win streaking in the early game. So it kind of is, the economy is going to the A-bomb players, and then it shifts over to some of our auto attack based players, and then that finally shifts over to our late game comps. And when Maestro is unable to kind of play one of those ultra late game comps, we don't find those results as easily as we may have in the past. The other thing about it is we're on our 4th lobby, and right now is when a lot of times someone from the bottom of the leaderboard will top 3 and ruin someone's day. So is it going to be Mortdog Cat? No one knows, but seriously, no one is out of the question here, even if you just want to play spoiler, which is something I love doing because I'm an awful person. But the moral of the story is you can affect the leaderboard still, regardless if you can still top 3 or not.
I just like that cool animation at the beginning. So yeah, already an RFC. Okay, that item almost floated off into space, but we've seen, is this Khroen? Yeah, Khroen actually slammed this in the previous lobby with that RFC. You have the Aatrox, it's almost deja vu for him again, and he has 2 Legionnaires in the shop, so hey, a Legionnaire 2-star maybe.
Yep, sometimes the game is like, do this. I'm telling you to do this, right? Please just listen as I roll past every Hellion I see, even though there's like 5 Hellions in each pack that I have. I'm just choosing not to do it. But sometimes the game is like, do this. It might not be super meta right now, but I'm giving you the units, and you might be able to stabilize and get to where you want to get to, as we already have a tier 2 Callista. What a great start.
That's really lucky for sure. And then they're thinking, okay, I'd love to get the Syndra for Redeem 3. I think that's one of the best openers for sure. As Syndra can hold AP items, then your Callista can hold the AD, or if you find a Varus, then that's an AD holder for Redeemed. And yeah, as long as you level 2 this is pretty smooth sailing.
I agree that Redeem comp is going to at least get you to Krugs. With a good amount of HP. We are able to get that Syndra onto the board. We're going to level up because we are definitely going to try to win streak. So if we lose this first round, that's when things can get a little bit squirrely for Khroen here, because the idea is that we leveled up, we have our redeemed, we're going to start win streaking, and that's how we're going to deal with our economy. But there are actually some tier 2 units, a couple people going level 4. We have an open forter as well with Mortdog Cat. Yes.
Might as well just YOLO through it if you... I can't remember the leaderboard if they think they're going to get top 4, but hey, they're time to experiment.
They got 2 8ths and a 7th, so why not now, right? Yep. This is where you can play that spoiler. I appreciate the spice.
Yeah, if you can't win with effort, see if you can win without effort, I guess.
See if you can win with some cheese, right? Go to the store, get some charcuterie, and see what happens.
Okay, this can be winnable. I think with an ult, the Warwick will get deleted, and it's all up to the Warwick, so... Hey,
ooh, that tanking
2-unit win. I think a lot of people, I think there was only maybe 2 other people in this whole lobby that went to level 4. I think Nyx and Swagatron and maybe one other person. A lot of level 3s.
Okay, are we going to continue to open fort? We have a couple units, nothing on the board. I wonder how much gold we actually started with. We're going to continue going with the defensive items. We're going to level up and roll. Oh, looks like so this isn't a true open fort. We're just going to roll at 2-2, which is something that you don't see very often, especially with a level up at 2-2 as well.
Huh?
Now we're just kind of wasting money. Maybe looking for
forcing Draconic?
Maybe.
Okay.
That was a lot of rolling for this point in the game that you're just not going to get that money back for.
Especially when you dodge the level 2 Kennen. I think Kennen's like one of the strongest Hellions for sure. Especially with that CC. You put a Morello's on him and he just does so much work. But with, or even Skirmisher, he can be a really great early game Skirmisher, whatever, trait you pick. But deciding not to level 2 the Kennen, just to maybe accidentally high roll a Zyra or an Ashe, didn't get it, and this is going to cost.
I mean, we probably spent 8 gold on rerolls, right? And we didn't really get anything out of it. We have a okay Udyr that was already built at that point in time, and we're not even going to win that round. So we invest upwards of 16 gold going down to 0. And we don't get anything out of it. We don't even have any units on the board, or on the bench. So we are gonna be lose streaking up until our NPC rounds, as we're gonna roll again. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we're just trying to force our Draconics in.
And this is where maybe a Shadow Tier turns into a Shadow Shojins, where you lose out on damage, but again, someone like Zyra doesn't really care about damage. She's more of your utility bot. So we'll see if that Draconic ends up working out or if they're going to 8th place their way out. But we can go check in with Andy, who has already slammed the dark blue buff, which tells me it's a very solid assassin direction. Because again, we've said this before, not a lot of other units can use that dark blue buff well.
But one of them that can use it almost perfectly, it was like they were almost made for each other, was LeBlanc. Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I was about to say, hopefully one day I can do that. I'm married. Anyway, sometimes for the joke, you gotta sacrifice a little bit of self.
Those chains of LeBlanc go so far. So she got yeeted by the Syndra and was able to chain from across the field. So that's kind of busted. But hey, it works out. I mean, she got below 50% HP, so was able to just keep on chaining.
Yep.
And maybe Andy likes getting yeeted like that.
Every time I see it, I just imagine her like walking a dog on a leash, right? She's just walking the champions like a dog, and then just going heel and then taking them down. But yeah, Andy not really could potentially sneak into the top 4, and definitely not the top 2. We'll see what happens here, though. Andy does seem to like spending money. Interestingly enough, like saving money and then for a very long time, almost perfectly, and then spending it in ways I have never seen before in TFT. So maybe it's just innovation. You never know.
So there's like this weird carousel meta where it took me a while to learn this, but you just kind of like hang out in the middle and then take the items that other people want, especially those top 3 folk that come out and already get the scraps, and they come up with this idea of what like Andy really wanted the Shadow Vest. I don't know, maybe for a Shadow GA or Shadow Titans, I'm not sure, but it has to go for the Rod, and I think this is still solid. I mean, you could build the Jewel Gauntlet on LeBlanc, or really who ends up being your carry, but this doesn't have to be slammed for a while.
Yeah, we can still be pretty flexible right now as the Dog Walker, LeBlanc, in the back line. Gonna put some leashes on some Yordles. Might take 1 or 2 out, but that's gonna be about it.
Ooh, that's gonna be a heavy loss too, but... And also they were on a win streak, so that kind of messes everything up. You don't really care about eco. I thought maybe they could have sold the Ashe, but then they would have had to get rid of the Kha'Zix to get to 20 gold, so deciding to buy the whole shop just to get better odds on the next one. And Andy might be laughing and smiling, but truly in pain of not having a clear shop direction.
It's that meme with the mask, right? And the and the guy crying behind the mask. We're feeling okay right now. This is one of the better starts that we've had so far. Usually we're playing Draconics and we're at the bottom side of the leaderboard, but that doesn't seem to be the name of the game this time around. We tried Draconics twice and we failed twice. So we didn't try Draconics once, and we got top 4 that time. So I like the transition of play. I think this is the correct choice as Rapidon's Shadow Tier on the Thresh. I actually kind of expected more damage out of that hook, but the Lysandra one is going to be able to live through it. It's going to be all up to this Callista to not die, and that she does immediately with 1300 crit with that Assassin LeBlanc walking that dog in the back line.
Andy's really looking for a Morgana, because I had mentioned Jewel Gauntlet on LeBlanc. Not you're looking for IE, but if that rod's not used on a Jewel Gauntlet, then you're looking for a Morello for Morgana. But still looking for that in order to get that Coven trait, to put that probably on LeBlanc. But now that you get a cat, you can get some more assassins going. But we get to check in with Nixer, who is going for Cavaliers and a few Hellions.
Mm-hmm. That mouse is kind of like what I feel like my personality looks like.
Just all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good representation
in a good way.
Of my personality. Yeah, in a good way, for sure. Also, we have, definitely, more dog cat and this rat. I don't know, man. I'm surprised both of them haven't really interacted with each other just yet. They are mortal enemies in the animal kingdom. But anyway, Nixer.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, yes. Nixer
it's a shark.
Is... Anyway, we have a Hodge, we have a Dragon's Claw, we maybe have a Chalice, Quicksilver. We actually have some good defensive and offensive opportunities. Since we already have that Jeweled Gauntlet on the Ziggs, we're already kind of moving that direction. We could potentially go Legionnaire with Yasuo, as Yasuo can use that Jeweled Gauntlet quite well. But other than that, it's kind of looking like just your general AP comp to start, maybe moving into something like Mordekaiser a little later. Or maybe we stick around and put that Jeweled Gauntlet on Teemo in 18 rounds.
Yeah, there's also that Cavalier direction, which is super popular in this reroll meta, where you go Hecarim, you put tank items on him, and then the Jewel Gauntlet can transition over to Brand to have kind of like a Spellweaver backline. And then having that declaw would also fit Hecarim a lot. And then the GA you can throw on your backline carry, just so if you have an unlucky assassin run in, you can't really position against it at this point of the game, you can always throw it on them. But hey, the Shadow Shojins, I was wondering where that was going to end up. Ended up being, again, you want to use it on a utility or a support, somebody where you just care about getting the ult off and not about the damage. So that was an interesting Ken and Shadow Shojins from their opponent.
So we're going to get more CC, but less damage unless we have that Morellos, especially the Dark Morellos, the more evil Nomicon on the Kennen. But I think, like, if you're thinking of Shadow Shojins and other people that might be good with it, any of the Mystics are pretty good with it. Even the Kindred, I think, is fine with the Shadow Shojins, just to get to that invincibility. But you can also put it on your Invokers, like Ivern. So Ivern could do some really good stuff with it, but there are better options just in general. But if you find yourself in that position, don't be afraid of it, because it does make you do less damage. There are people who hold it really, really well. I think the Hextech Gunblade of Immortality functions in that way too, where in certain situations it can feel very powerful.
So just with that static Shiv slam on these Ziggs tells me maybe this is a longer Hellion composition than I thought, like maybe sticking around on Hellions longer, while as I wouldn't have expected that. But I guess with a bow, there's not like too many things you're looking at besides maybe a Titans for Hecarim. So we're kind of in the middle of Hellions and maybe Cavaliers. So that's probably the reason why you're trying to get level 2 Sejuani on the bench. And if you can high roll a Rel or anything like that, I think it's only Cavalier 4 you mentioned that got nerfed in the B patch. So that's the only thing you have to worry about. Cavalier is still very strong.
I think so too. I'm a little surprised we're not seeing more of it. We're seeing the Cav 2 a lot. We're seeing Skirmishers kind of come back. But again, it's been assassins most of the day, except for the third lobby. But let's see what kind of other comps we might end up seeing. This one could definitely be turning into an Invoker comp a little bit later, as we actually have 2 static Shivs, one on a Lulu, one on a Ziggs. Usually you actually see both of those on Ziggs, as they do both stack. So we're going to be doing it in different order this time. Ziggs has a higher, and we're gonna die. Like this is interesting to me. I think there's a better argument for splitting the shivs up than some of the other mistakes that we've seen today, but traditionally, we do see that Ziggs carry both of those shivs, and might have actually been the difference between taking down that Aphelios or not, and losing by one less unit.
And especially having this the shadow static shiv on Lulu, so because you don't really care about her damage, right? The shadow static shiv has less damage, and Ziggs is kind of your primary damage dealer. I know Kled, you can throw items on him, but this is an interesting. We're seeing a lot of Hellions just in general in this lobby,
which is the first time we've seen it so far today, right? It's been abomination upon abomination upon abomination, and so far we haven't seen my twin pop out of the ground just yet. So,
not yet.
My long-lost twin, the one that I had to remove when I was born. We buried it on the convergence, and we watered it, and we let it grow, and now it's here in set 5.
That's cute. You let it grow like a little plant.
Yeah.
I'm still having that Cavalier direction. I see a lot of people use Victor as the second spell weaver just because it provides shields, especially for your Cavaliers, and especially Khroen, who needs all the support he can, who's just going to be tanking so much. But deciding against it, maybe the Ziggs will stay around for longer, but probably needing to level 2 these Cavaliers before you throw them in, as probably Hellion 5 is going to be your best board at the moment.
We still have that double static shiv, which is actually going to be making that Kennen, for example, do a lot more damage when we do get to that ult, as it is going to take away some of that magic resist. So when we do go bowling, it might take off enough damage to butter them up for these static shivs, a little bit more than maybe they may have done in the past. But this Hellion frontline just isn't enough right now to deal with some of these skirmishers, especially.
Yeah, just not having a proper AP item. Because, yeah, you're doing a lot of MR shred, but you also need to do AP for that to be useful. And just a Kennen, especially maybe even a Shadow Morello would have been better. But if they do decide to go Cavaliers, I think the Morello would also be fine to throw on something like Morgana, because you're going to have the Nightbringer from Sejuani. You can think about Mystics with Ryze or Lulu, etc. later on. So the Morello still can be useful, but we seem so anchored in Hellion right now, and it's not working out. So I'm wondering what Java's going to make do of this.
Yeah, and Maestro actually in last place right now. So that kind of tells me that we're probably running Sins and we're not hitting as we had been in the past. We're either running Sins or Hellions as well. But yeah, we're already taking casualties on this Hellion comp, but we're doing a lot better than in a previous matchups. The brand, though, is going to be ripping through a lot of HP, and we have one of our first abominations that we've seen so far today with another Hurricane. It is going to be that abomination and Victor taking this round.
Just the bug squash of monstrosity coming out and just squishing all the baby Hellions coming out of, I guess, the hell hole in the corner. But get to go and check in with Jolly, who's in 6th place, having the Forgotten splashed in. So this is kind of what I was talking about, having Abomination, Spellweaver, having Victor in there for the shields. And then how you're distributing your items is based on kind of your Abomination, because they can only donate 1 item each. And then if you start putting multiple items, then you're kind of RNGing it.
You can only donate 1 item each, friends. If you're feeling nicer than that, then I guess it's over for you. But we got a spat too. We do not have the Shadow Cloak. So the Shadow Cloak is, the Shadow Sparring Glove, which is going to be the Abomination spat. We have 2 Nikos as well, so we could tier 3 some of our some of our Abomination units, or add another Spellweaver too. But I think we should definitely wait till at least this Armory to see if we can hit on that Dark Glove, and if not, then we'll start using our items.
Yeah, it's hard to pick of who could be your. At least this opens up a 4th Spellweaver. Decides to just throw it on Warwick, because you said earlier kind of that the claws and the AP and all that. So that's going to help out Brand so much, as that's becoming the primary carry. And then you have the Shadow Shojin, which takes down, of course, the AD of Victor, but only cares about giving those shields as often as possible. And that's going to help your frontline live so much and leave Brand untouched. Where now the next thing you're thinking about is, are those Nikos going to help get Brand to level 3? Or is this going to help you maybe get to Ryze level 2 early if you care about that? Or really, who do you want to level 2 instantly? Is that part of a level 3? And are we getting a darn blue buff on this Brand? because I've said it so many times.
You have to be right at least once, and it's going to be no. No dark blue buff so far. No shadow Spar Glove either, so that's got to feel pretty good to know that that quick slam that we did with the Spellweaver ended up being the right decision, even after finding out what was in the armory. And now we're coming up into our units that might be invested in our Nikos. Usually we would invest our Nikos into singular units, but we've seen that power spread a little bit more frequently, as you can come up to 2 or 3 Nikos in a game, especially if you start with one. And you're kind of just racing to the end of the game at that point in time. But Omaestro just tier 3'd their set. So I think we're running Draconic, and that's why we're at 47 HP.
You know what I just thought about, Boo?
What's
Spell Bearer. Spellweaver Volleybear. His elbow, his John Cena elbow to the ground is AP, and I put AP items on Volleybear, and it's actually disgusting. The ground pound is what I call it. So I'm thinking once we get a better brawler, we're just going to be trading the Spellweaver spat around until we get that Volleybear, and that's going to be disgusting.
Oh, yeah, I actually think, and remember, friends, this is one of those things that I actually taught a pro player a couple weeks ago, which is Volibear's ult deletes shields. It gets rid of all shielding. So, like, if there's if there's a Mordekaiser in their ult, or if a Victor or something like that in Volibear ult, all those shields are gone. Right, so that's one of the best counters to something like a Mordekaiser, or it should be. I think Volibear's stats are just not where they need to be to truly be that counter, but it is really good. For example, if we're going up against this comp, the Victor shields would just get deleted after that ult.
And I'm learning a lot because I've been trying to run more Abominations because I'm trying to slurp some LP, you know, in ranked. And I'm seeing a lot of people just position to the right side to avoid, of course, an Abomination from the other side, because you always want to position for your mirror counter. So keeping everyone safe to the right, as Zyra is going to try and bait attention to the left. But this is getting a little close. And now that Monstrosity is out, Brand and friends have some space to work with. But this should be a dub.
Yep, the Spellweaver's doing some really good work along with the Abomination. Spellweavers can be difficult to lock in. They seem really paper thin, but with the shielding from the Victor and just the overall damage they get through the Spellweaver trait, you're feeling pretty great about that, as Javaday still on the Teemo hunt. Needs a Shadow Bow for Hellion? No. Yeah, Shadow Bow is Hellion, or is it Rod? Because Legionnaire is regular bow. Anyway, regardless, we need a Teemo and a Hellion spat.
Now you got the Hackerum. Man, I just wanted to see like a level 3 Hackerum in action. I think maybe we saw in the Challenger series yesterday, and I've been watching some videos about it, and it looks so busted. And I'm looking forward to seeing some people do it. Oh, I think Kagros, if I'm saying that correctly, ran Cavalier for reroll yesterday and popped off. But now that we got some more Cavaliers going, we're up to 3. And maybe having that Lux, great utility champ to get some Mystics going, maybe in the future, or currently now just at 2, maybe even a third one.
Oh, but, he did!
The Teemo hits.
And he's got a Nico, so he only needs to find one more Teemo. He doesn't need to sacrifice that 6 HP, which at the bottom of the leaderboard at this point in time is actually very important to keep. 6 HP might be the difference between, you know, 3rd and 4th place, or 4th and 5th place, and getting that extra point. And you're already seeing that power increase right here. And right now, winning by more than a couple units. I think maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I think maybe 1 unit got taken out there and just did a ton of damage to Mort Dog Cat.
Wow, it's a huge win too. A huge loss, huge win. Depends on what side of the coin you're on. Mort Dog just on the verge of being knocked in 8th. But this was a person he pointed out was kind of, quote, open forting at the beginning and just experimenting. So really struggling to get top 4 in any of the lobbies we had today. But I think we've had a pretty consistent top 4. I think maybe Nyx has had some ups and downs. And beyond that, this is generally the top 4 we've had today.
Yeah, Jolly Faker having a little bit better of a game so far. Definitely has been holding that middle of the road so far today. But yeah, you know, sometimes when you're going up against someone like Java and you really just need one Hellion and you just hit, right? It seems like the game is kind of telling you, okay, this one is going to be around for a while. So I definitely expect this Teemo to take this at least to a top 4, maybe even to a top 2, depending on where the other comps do land. But the Abomination is able to get into the back line. One more ult from the Teemo might be enough. No! So the Abomination is going to kick him right in the face. So if that Teemo was last against the Abomination, Teemo still would have won that round, but one kick to the face is all that A-Bomb is going to need.
Ooh, and Jolly Faker being on fire, they're on a win streak, they're feeling good. And we're fully dedicated now to this Hellion comp. We were kind of thinking, okay, is this Khroen going to be in the picture? We were long speculating about, okay, we could get rid of these Kennen items, throw it on Morgana. But then the double static shiv made us think, okay, this really must be a Hellion comp, because that's kind of the Hellion item, core item for them. And yeah, you might sacrifice a bit of damage having the shadow static shiv version, but Teemo is, if you can get even to level 9, but even level 8, this is a very strong late game composition.
Whew, we already have a Teemo 2. We didn't even have to take 12 extra damage for it. Javaday is feeling mighty fine right now. Doesn't even need the coffee right now for if you're drinking some Java, or it might be a place as well, as I believe Java is also in Indonesia. Says GeoGuessr. I'm actually pretty good at geography. Anyway, Javaday, though, I don't know why I had to brag about that. With that, Teemo 2 is going to be ripping apart a lot of people in other people's comps because of that one static shiv, the double static shiv on them, which is going to take a lot of that magic resist out, and then with the jeweled gauntlet. So, oh, and it's perfect. You get 3 auto attacks before the mushrooms come out. So you get the spread, you get the auto attacks in, and you're feeling good. And again, just look how much stronger this Hellion comp has become not just from, but getting from a Teemo 2.
Seeing Andy with a Thief's Gloves Nocturne, that's interesting. And that's rough, because I don't think these assassins are really going to benefit from tank items, so you're really just hoping for some utility and mostly damage, but Andy's really leaving himself up to fate as to what those Thief's Gloves are going to become. And yeah, that Spellweaver spat, I thought it was going to go into Volibear for the ult damage, but of course, now that they rolled the Teemo, that's going to give Teemo even more AP.
Even more AP with the shred on the magic resist, with the jeweled gauntlet, and we got the stacks on the shivs too. So we're kind of a Spider-Man meme right now, minus the Teemo. Our version of this comp is much better. So if I'm Javaday, I'm feeling real good about where my comp is at right now. We only, I believe, need the Kindred to really protect some of our Hellions. You can definitely put in that Lulu along with the Kindred to get your double Mystics too, and Mystic Splash, very popular right now.
I think Mort Dog is the first to be out, and then Andy is soon to be there. I think with Maestro with that win, they might be able to... hope and a prayer that they can climb into that top 4, because I think Swagatron and Nyx ended up losing that last one, so maybe Maestro could be strong enough to sneak by, at least, avoid 6th or 7th place, maybe.
Andy rolling down all the money, because you've got to at 14 HP, 5-3. We might only have one more round remaining. And unfortunately for us, we rolled AP on our Nocturne. That is not fun. We have good items on we have 2 good items on the Cat. That blue buff should have been on the Cat, but we put it on LeBlanc really early, which was good for the early game, but we weren't able to transition into the late game, and we only have 5 assassins instead of 6. So much could have gone better right now for Andy. It's just unfortunate too with that roll, because say that Nocturne rolls Ginsu's, right? Things might be totally different, as Swagatron is looking pretty strong right now. It's going to be the battle of the Nocturnes and friends, and Andy survives another round, 3 HP, Maestro at 6.
Yeah, the slamming the Shadow Hex tech on the LeBlanc is a little bit sad face, just because it heals everyone but you, and if it's going to be on a core character, little worried, but hey, the Assassin spat will help out a lot. Just who do you want to become Assassin? Are we thinking about Gragas? Are we thinking about Ivern? We'll have to see, I guess. I guess we've seen some Rise assassins in the past, too.
Yeah, in that first lobby, and it crushed it for like 2 rounds. As Andy, though, with that last LeBlanc, could get LeBlanc 3, but unfortunately still might not be enough. Because like you said, we don't have the ability to heal ourselves. And so where is this assassin spat going to go? It'd be funny on the Ivern. It's got to go on the Ivern or the Gragas. So who's it going to be? Ivern. Yeah! Let's see this.
God.
How funny would it be if when you summon Daisy, it also jumps? That'd be hilarious.
Maybe I wish I would have been Gragas, because you have redemption, so then he jumps and maybe gives redemption to the assassins, but...
Oh, that's not a bad idea, actually. That's a great idea. That's probably what I would have done, is put the Gragas back there, because, yeah, he would have gotten these redemption procs on these assassins in the corner. 100%.
You're getting rid of Gragas eventually, so those items are going to come off, but now this Ivern is in here for good because of that Revenant buff, but that's an L... And a full L out of this lobby. Jolly just took him out. And Jolly's like doubling HP right now in first place. That's just an unlucky encounter for Andy for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about Andy is a lot of really cool play, a lot of spiciness right now. Playing for playing the way that Andy plays, and I definitely respect that. But we are now into the nitty-gritty for our top 4 as Swagatron. Everyone that you see right now more capable of getting into the top 3. Omaestro is pretty much guaranteed a top 2 at this point in time, but we are potentially going to get eliminated in 5th place and have our last lobby not be the one that we top 4. We do have a Heimerdinger 2 and a Teemo at the ready.
I got to see my set reroll comp. I'm so stoked, and some pretty solid items all around. Even the Shadow Locket, which maybe you wish Ivern wasn't affected by that, because it's already tough to get that Daisy online. So the Shadow Locket will give MR and armor, but you get some mana messed up with. But why you include Set in that is that he's going to get attacked a lot, and he has a lot of HP, so he's mainly going to get mana from getting punched to death. So that's going to be one tonky boy. On top of having Teemo slow down the attack speed of everyone who's clumped up, this has to be a game winner.
Look at this lobby. 3 people, single-digit HP. Last NPC round, most likely for half of our lobby. We've got a redemption for Nixer. You know, that's actually not bad. Ionic Spark, another redemption. And a Zephyr. The Zephyr, definitely the best item out of anyone, I think, that got one in this round. Legionnaire on the Diana, too. So that Diana going to get to that ultimate just a little bit quicker. We actually can make it even tankier with the Zephyr. Where are we going to put the Zephyr, though? Probably a tier 1 unit of some sort. So that Lee Sin seems like a good option, because now we have 2 Zephyrs on this field.
But it's maybe becoming more popular to actually Zephyr somebody in the front line, especially if you're worried about this set. Because if the set could be the last character you have to worry about, or last unit you're worried about taking down, then that's also a valuable Zephyr. And then you also already have items on Diana, so since she's already in the front line. But yeah, you have a lot of flexible units that could move her all around the board. So it's all about, do you care about Zephyring maybe that set in the front line? I think there's maybe a few people that have some backline people to worry about, like these Teemos, so if you can Zephyr that. But yeah, wanting to Zephyr that Teemo.
There it is. Gets the Zephyr on the Teemo. Also, I want to point out that there is a random rel in this comp right now, and we saw Andy roll past it, but it was more valuable to Khroen to have it in this comp, and I think that CC along with that shielding might end up being a pretty big deal, unless Volibear gets rid of all the shields. Volibear got rid of the shield there and might have actually helped win this round, and that it does, as Khroen is going to fall. Nyx will fall right after as well. It looks like Khroen will get that 4th place. Nyx, bad luck today, just overall 5th place there. And now we have our top 3. Volibear taking away the shields definitely mattered in that one particular instance. Oh, there is the Volibear too.
Volibear in the shop? Can I get that kind of luck, please? Also, that Teemo that we saw in the earlier fight destroyed a Mordekaiser at half health with Warmogs. So that, even with the Zephyr, that Teemo wrecked. So this is going to become a problem. Look how much more HP Jolly has compared to everyone else. Hitting that Teemo with Soulborn and having Teemo level 2. And the fact that they're still at 60 HP despite using that much HP to buy the Teemo level 2 means Jolly has been dominating.
A lot of HP economy, but I think the thing that Teemo is weakest against are other Teemos. So I think the other Teemos have a better shot of winning against this particular Teemo, as Omaestro will be felled by the little devil himself. We have the top 2. Is it going to be Java or is it going to be Jolly? It's J&J.
Damn, I wonder who's gonna win, the 15 win streak Teemo 60 HP person or Javaday. But like you said, we have to play it out to the no FFing. That's not very sportsmanlike.
Yeah, Javaday actually lost to your reroll comp that got eliminated by this comp. So, yeah, Javaday might actually have a better chance against this particular comp. In terms of the front line, though, this Volibear is going to be pretty useful. Definitely sell a couple units for that Ivern. And with that Chalice, we're going to help our team out even more. And we have enough HP at this point where we can econ at 6-3.
You just have like so many layers of CC, whether it's the Volibear pounding your front line, you have the Rise, their ult, and then the Ivern on top of the monstrosity. Like, how can you possibly get to this Teemo? It's Teemo versus Teemo. Who has the better front line? Looks like even Mystics and these Kindreds coming online to protect these Teemos, but it is not Jollies that will survive to the end. So maybe we got a few more fights to go.
Yeah, I think we might have a few more indeed. Again, the best way to go against Teemo is another Teemo, as there's a Heimerdinger and a Teemo and a Spellweaver spat on the board. Will Jolly take the Spellweaver spat?
I don't know. It's like, do you want to go Spellweaver? There's like a Christmas list of synergies going on here, but and I think it was more Jolly that held on to a bunch of Mystics on the bench just to. I think we have Mystic 3 just for Java, which that magic resist pretty good against that Teemo, who, like I said, was destroying Mordekaisers, who are I think, one of the tankiest units. But then you have a Volibear staring down your front line. So I think that's what ended up buying Jolly a lot of time there, but see who comes out ahead.
All right. Will Java live another day against this Teemo? It's going to be cross Teemos again. Where those mushrooms land are going to really determine exactly where this round ends, as now the CC is going to be coming up. Nice mushrooms coming from Jolly that time around. Gets the other Teemo in the back line, but the Teemo from Jolly is going to fall first again. It looks like it's going to be the Shiv and the Jeweled Gauntlet that seems to be the difference maker right now, as Java going to do a lot of damage to Jolly Faker this time around. Are we going to make it to round 7? It looks like we are, as 18 and 28 HP respectively is what remains, but Jolly Faker gets that Heimerdinger too. There is no Heimerdinger for Java, so that might be a nice secondary damage for going up against Javaday right now.
I think also what was key was that Javaday's Kennen ended up catching that Teemo at the very back and CCing them just long enough for either the burn of the Morello to get them below half and pretty much being finished off by that. And then also having the MR shred of the Teemo and the Dawnbringer MR, or sorry, not Dawnbringer, the Garen MR shred there. So although the CC of the Volibear is nice, it's just making the Teemo so squishy. Like, we're seconds into the fight, and the Kindred is what saved this Teemo of Jolly from dying this early.
Yeah, I actually would, at this point, experiment with moving one of the Teemos in the back line, but it actually looks like Jolly is going to win this out instead. I speak too soon, as Java gets, I think, baited a little bit into a sense of false confidence, as do I, as the Jolly's Teemo gets 2 mushrooms to the face, but ends up taking the lobby anyway. Omaestro definitely probably sitting on top of the leaderboard. Let's see who the rest of the top 3 are after we're done with our scores. But Lemonkiwi, it was an absolute blast casting with you. 4 lobbies, 4 really, really cool games so far. What are some highlights for you as we kind of get the scores and the interview set up?
Well, the last lobby were the two Teemos, and it's not just about the Teemos, but what colored around the Teemos, whether we thought the Brawler Volibear frontline was going to be enough, the Spellweaver spat on Teemo, which gave so much AP to deal with these Mordekaisers that were in 3rd and 4th place, and then Teemo v Teemo, it was really back and forth of whether the MR Shred and the Kennen CC or just the stun was enough to take care of the Teemo, or if it was the CC of the Volibear that was going to be enough. And it was a toss-up. Both ended up winning against each other. So Teemo all supreme. All hail Teemo.
All hail Teemo. And also, let's see what the leaderboard is saying as well. Final scores are going to be Omaestro with the 3-peat and pretty dominant today. Top 4s every single lobby at 33 points. Khroen will be coming back next week at 29. Javaday at 25. Jolly Faker needed that win in order to come. That actually ended up being the elimination game between Javaday and Jolly Faker. That's got to be tough to see if you're Jolly Faker. But Javaday will be coming back next week, and Jolly will be getting a cool $25.
Hey, the top 3 invites. That's what Teamfight, or this is what a fight night is all about. Just kind of the next stars of tomorrow when it comes to TFT. But Maestro just very consistent. First place is showing us the power of assassins, and we got to see so many interesting things. I really didn't think Aphelios was that good, but we saw a bunch of Nightbringer comps, especially in Lobby 3, do amazingly well. Especially Andy, who decided to just level 3 a bunch of things and proving to me that maybe it is worth level 3ing those guys instead of worrying about fast leveling with that money.
Yeah, I think we have Omaestro. Are you there, my friend?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
we're becoming best friends at this point in time. 3 in a row.
3 in a row,
my friend.
Well,
that's obviously feels really good. But what do you owe your success to over 3 weeks? Because I don't know if you know this, but rarely do people win 3 weeks in a row, let alone come back for 3 weeks.
well, I was very unsure about what to play this patch, honestly, because the B patch was just very, very recently. The way I thought was I had already in mind that Yasuo was a good comp to play, and Assassins as well. These were the 2 comps that I was really looking as a very strong contenders. Especially Yasuo, I think it was Setsuko that was playing it one time on stream, and I just... he got a very easy first place, so I rewatched the VOD, and I saw how we played it, and I tried kind of to replicate a bit. So always trying to pick up things from good players that are in good tournaments, basically. So it has been a lot of this kind of researching, spending time a bit theory crafting, and playing what the game gives me, because I was not planning to play sets after this huge nerf. So, but it ended up happening.
Lemon, you have anything for our winner?
It's my first time meeting you, but congratulations. You're apparently dominating all of the fight nights. As someone myself who sucks at running assassins, and maybe others in chat who feel that way, what makes you decide on which assassin becomes your carry? Is it the first you get level 3? Is Nocturne always the best one? And maybe thoughts on Katarina?
So for assassin's builds, there is a friend of mine that streams, and he basically one-tricked Nocturne to Challenger. And I was basically watching his stream one morning, and I saw Sox as well playing it yesterday. And he's also in the chat putting some emotes. It's take it down. And I thought he was actually. I mean, Nocturne seems a very strong carry, and from back like I think 2 patches or 3 patches ago, there was a player in a tournament that played Shadow Lockhart in Assassins with Katarina, with blue buff, and Nocturne carry, right? These 2 don't need mana if Katarina needs as blue buff. So Nocturne becomes very tanky, has a lot of sustain. So I think if I have to pick an assassin to carry, it's always Nocturne, honestly, especially after the LeBlanc nerfs. And the secondary carry for me, it's either LeBlanc or Katarina, but I think in this case, as I was slow rolling at 7, Katarina became easier to land at 3 stars, so I ended up carrying Katarina as a secondary carry.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Well, another thing that I kind of wanted to ask you is you're talking about prepping, watching streams, and doing a lot of pre-work. So if you were to give someone who is just kind of starting out, because mark my words, friends, I think Maestro is going to be around for a while. I think you're very talented. I think you're a very, very good player. And if you keep this up, I think we're going to keep talking. But if you were to pick like one thing to tell people about this set to help them succeed, what would that be?
I know there's been a lot of talks in regards to it's very difficult to play flexible, and I kind of agree. This set right now it's a bit difficult, so committing to a comp early it's always a good thing. But what I try to always do is I try to build generic items that work for many comps. So for instance, Runans, it's an item that works for Riven, works for Yazoo, works for Nocturne. Although Shadow Runans is better in a couple of these champions, even in reroll skirms, it works very well with Nidalee. And it was a build that I had planned to bring out, but unfortunately I couldn't bring it out. And I always try to pick up things. I mean, the other day I watched Treebeard one tricking a 6 skirms reroll, and I was like, this is actually good. And I tried it out. It worked well. So I basically put it in my back pocket as comps that I can play if I hit, because I think remaining flexible and not really restraining yourself to just playing meta comps, it's something that brings a lot of improvement. So I ended up playing Mordekaiser carry, which is not a thing anymore, right? But it was what the game gave me, the perfect items. So you need to always try to adapt yourself to what the game is giving you, and I think that's probably the strongest skill that you should always try to nurture.
And how strong are assassins if other people, since it's such a, a powerful composition, how many people can contest it against you before you really start to worry if you can get to these level 3s like Nocturne, Katarina, LeBlanc, etc.?
I always try to play uncontested comps. I think you could see from this tournament, I always played uncontested comps, especially in a tournament scenario. Maybe in ladder, probably no. I actually try to limit test a lot more, and I try to contest some comps that it's not as good. So for Nocturne, I think if you want to climb, Nocturne 2 is enough for top 4.
Okay.
But I also think that if assassins become very contested in the lobby, there are comps that are very strong against assassins that you can take advantage of it. So Rangers is one of the ones that I really like, but as nobody was really playing that much assassins, and Yazoo is also a very strong one, because how you position Yazoo is kind of the key part, because you position and Lee Sin in the backline, and if Lee Sin is 3-starred, he slows the attack speed so much and deals so much AoE damage on the assassins that you can just run away with it, because Yazoo is just with the Runans killing everybody else.
Awesome. Well, Maestro, thank you so much for joining us again. We're getting to know each other quite well, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. You have a really great weekend, and congratulations again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And so that is going to be it for Fight Night Rising today. But we have a ton of TFT coming at you still. If you guys want to, before I get there, if you guys want to follow Omaestro on Twitter, it's Omaestro TFT on Twitter. You can also go to the giantslayer Twitter to see everyone's Twitters of everyone who participated today. You can follow them and their careers. People like Sphinx, people like Marcel P, who have played in the Challenger Series and the Cups, have come from Fight Night Rising themselves. But that's going to be it. I've been Boop here with Lemonkiwi, who I think crushed it today. It was an absolute pleasure casting with you. Any final words for our friends at home?
Now, just a really big shout out to giantslayer for having these fight nights, a super chill community, and Boop for just being awesome. And of course, there is the Challenger Series, the whole reason why Khroen is not here and I'm replacing. So let's go and cheer on Khroen, our fellow fight night, doing Challenger Series. And it's on this channel. You can catch the VOD from day one. Seems like all the pros are studying it, as Maestro said. But yeah, it's been a great time.
Awesome. Well, like we said, stick right here for the Challenger Series and see who's going to make it into those final lobbies. Once again, I've been Boop here with Lemon, and this has been Fight Night Rising. We'll see you next week.